Well, welcome everyone. I think we're actually in both places, like we decided to be. So welcome. I am super to have every one of you here today. Today, we're going to talk about how do you get your first technology job. So apologies for a little bit of the technical challenges that went on this morning. You know, when we stream from Zoom and we take our messages from Zoom and we go all the way over to, what's the word I'm looking for? When we go from Zoom to YouTube, anything can happen. So, well, welcome everyone. I think we're actually in both places. Okay, so now we know what was going on. We're actually live on both places. So let's talk about how to get your first cloud architect job. And this is something that I definitely love talking about because, you know, the whole point of studying, the whole part of learning is to build yourself a really great cloud computing career. So today we'll talk about how to get your first cloud architect job. Now, whenever you hear someone speak, realistically speaking, you really need to guess what is their background. Ask where they come from to see if they're credible. When you read an article, when you read literally anything in life, you really should be looking for the perspective of where the person's coming from. So let's make sure we kind of give you that kind of information. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. I've been working in tech now for over 25 years, and I've loved every last minute of it. I've gotten to work for great companies such as Cisco. Riverstone Networks was an incredible routing and switching vendor that came out of the old Cabletron. I was the lead architect at Comcast, responsible for their backbone. And I also had the opportunity to work at MCI WorldCom as lead architect. In fact, that was my first technology job 20 some years ago, my first major one. Over the last 20 several years, I've been considered to be an expert with regards to global network design, cloud computing, and IT security. And I've been teaching or mentoring others to get their first technology jobs now for literally over 20 years. And it's something I'm very, very, very passionate about. So what we're going to discuss today is going to be as follows. We're going to talk about how we created the Get Your First Tech Job method and why it actually works. Then after that, we're going to talk about how to become the hiring manager's dream hire so you can get hired. Then after that, what we're going to work on is teaching you how to build a resume that's going to help you get hired so you get interviewed. Then we'll talk about getting your resume in the hands of the hiring manager and not blocked by HR. And then we'll talk about expanding your professional network. And then we're going to do 1 hour of group coaching where you can ask us any questions on Zoom or any questions on YouTube, and we'll answer them. So I hope to make this a really good day. I hope to make this a wonderful use of your time. And I hope to give you the skills so you know what to do to get hired. So to begin, let's talk about how we created the How to Get Your First Tech Job method and why we actually created it 20 some years ago. Well, I'm going to tell you, this method was created for me. See, I was practicing internal medicine and I absolutely loved it. But what was going on is I'd work all day. I'd be at the office at 7 or the hospital. I'd round on my patients. Then I'd see patients till 3 or 4. Then I'd go to the hospital, round on my patients until 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And you know what I did when I went home? I played with tech. I loved it so much. I played with tech. In 1997, 1998, I was literally spending $30,000 a year on computers and routers and switches. Now, my wife is an absolute genius. She learned Spanish in 10 days because her translators couldn't understand her thoughts. My wife has 170 IQ. And my wife says to me one night, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and she walks into the computer room, which is filled with computers. It sounds like a jet engine. And she says, "Dear, I have an idea." I'm like, "Well, tell me your ideas. They're usually great." And she says, "I think you should get out of this medicine thing." She says, "If you spend every last minute of your time and every last extra dollar we have left over on buying tech, maybe you should make it your career." And I went, wow, what a great idea. So I wanted to move into tech. So what do? I went and took this 5-day, $5,000 MCSE, Microsoft Certified Systems Engineering Bootcamp, and I passed it. Took all the exams, got the certification, no big deal. Locked myself in a room for 4 days and became a Cisco Certified Network Associate. They were 4 miserable days locking myself in a room doing self-study, but I did it in 4 days. Then I knew associate certifications are never enough to get hired, and I knew I needed something professional. So what did I do instead? I decided I would take this 10-day, $11,000 Cisco Certified Network Professional, CCNP Bootcamp, which was very helpful. I learned so much. Hard 10 days was $11,000, which was pretty expensive, especially in 1999 when I took this course. But it was building my career. So I do this and I get home from this trip that was an NT school in Florida that was running this CCNP boot camp. And I said, you know what? It's only 2 more certifications to be a Cisco certified design professional. So, wow, what could that be? So I took these 2 tests. So I was now an MCSE, a CCNP, and a CCDP. 3 professional level certifications. See, I knew associate certifications weren't enough, but I knew the professionals were, and I had 3 of them. So here's what happened. I applied for 5 jobs. I got 5 rejections, 3 were in the form of email, and actually 2 were phone calls, which I was really grateful to. It was a long time ago and people communicated. Every one of them said, Mike, you've got this great certification portfolio. Mike, you've got no degrees in tech. I mean, it looks like you're an internal medicine doctor or a nurse practitioner or whatever that is. And they said, your degrees are in healthcare. Your jobs are in healthcare. How do I hire you for tech? And, I thought about it and I was like, this is a problem. No degrees in tech, no experience in tech. How do I get hired? So I went home to try and work the problem like I do for literally everything. Go work the problem until you come up with a resolution. And then when I think, I go to the gym. So I've done martial arts for 30 years. I practiced and or taught yoga for 15 years. I did Olympic weightlifting when I was younger. So, I was no stranger to the gym. So whenever I need to think, at least before I hurt my foot in it, training with some martial arts, I used to go to the gym. So I'd go to the gym. And when I went to the gym, I ran into a good friend of mine, this big, giant, muscly bodybuilder who worked in tech. And he had a lot of things to say. And he's like, how's your tech job going? And I said, well, I'm a CCNP, I'm a CCDP, and an MCSC. And I keep applying for jobs and I keep getting rejections. And my friend says to me, what do you mean you're applying for jobs? I said, I'm filling out job applications and applying for jobs. And he stops me and he says, Michael, you don't apply for jobs. You won't get hired that way. And I'm like, what do I need to do? And he said, Mike, look, if you've been in tech for 20 years, you go apply for jobs, you're going to skim right through HR, you're going to get hired. He said, but he says, you got all this medical background, all these medical degrees, all this other stuff. You don't have anything tech. You can't apply for the job. You need a new path. You need to go through a recruiter. And I'm like, what's a recruiter? And he says, someone that will get you directly in the hands of the hiring manager so you'll stop getting rejected. So I said, that sounds pretty cool. Now, I lived in the Philadelphia metro. I come from a large Greek family. We're constantly translating Greek to English for them because my family got here when they were in their late 50s. So they weren't exactly young to be experts with, learning languages and things like that. So, these are the kind of things that we tried to deal with or contend with. So because of that, what's realistically we're dealing with, I needed a new plan. I wasn't moving to California. So the first recruiter I called was in California. And I called the recruiter and I said, hello. I said, can I talk to you about getting a tech job? And he says, sure, email me your resume. So, I emailed him my resume off of like my Windows 98 computer at the time, and we started to speak real time. Now, this recruiter went through my resume and it was amazing. He spent 45 minutes with me. And he said, I hate to say this to you, Mike. He's like, you're so well educated. He said, you've got the best certifications you could possibly imagine. He said, the only thing you're missing is the CCIE. He said, and I'm sure you'll get that in time too. He said, but you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have this. Hiring managers will look for this, and this. I was so blown away. I was so thankful that, what I did? I sent a huge gift to the recruiter. And then I said, I wonder if other recruiters feel the same way. So I proceeded to call 50 more recruiters across the country, almost one in every state. And I said, I'm looking to get a network engineering job. And they all kind of the same thing. I said, I've never worked in tech. I have no degrees in tech. I have these certs. All in all, the recruiters kind of gave me the same concept. And I said, wow, I think I'm on to something. So employers wanted this. Every recruiter told me pretty much the same thing. This is where I was. This was my skill set. So if recruiters want this and this is me, obviously there's a delta. There's a gap between what they want and what I want. So after I had a list from the recruiters of what everybody wanted, I basically said, okay, to get there, build a gap analysis, build a plan, and I did everything the recruiters wanted. Now I went on my first tech interview. I was interviewed by this great guy. His name was Devendra over at MCI WorldCom. And on his interview, he asked me a technical question and I answered it. He asked me a behavioral question. I answered it. Like, tell me about yourself. He asked me another technical question and I answered. I'm like, wow, this is going great. And he asked me the third technical question. Now, I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. Instead of bluffing and lying, like 99% of people do in an interview, I just said the following. I said, Devendra, I said, look, I have to be honest with you. It's Monday at 11:30 a.m. I said, let's face it, last Friday at like 6:30 p.m., I was still doing rounds with my patients in the hospital. I said, I've never been in a tech interview in my life, so I hope I'm doing okay. I said, but I love tech. I said, I loved it so much that I became a CCNP, a CCDP, and an MCSC. I said, I've got about 15 servers sitting in my house and 10 routers, and all I do is play with tech all day long because I love it so much. That's why I'm leaving medicine to be here. I said, but I've not had the opportunity to work with this technology yet, and I don't want to mislead you. I said, but I'm energetic, I'm enthusiastic, I'm passionate. I said, I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I can find answers to things quickly. And if this was something important, being working here, I would learn it overnight. I said, I can read a good 1,000 pages a day. I've done it every day, and I could learn it overnight. Now, something happened. It was totally blew me away. I was expecting the interview to end there. But as soon as I finished the sentence, Devendra puts his hand and shakes my hand and he says, guess what? You're hired. And I was like, why am I hired? I didn't know until I've interviewed 5,000 people why that was such an effective answer. He said, you're hired for the following reason. He said, you're the first person that hasn't lied to me in the last 6 months that I've interviewed. He said, quite frankly, only one person in my entire career hasn't lied to me. And he said, you are honest. And he said, that means so much to me. He said, but more importantly, he said, you already know more than 80% of the people I've already interviewed and half of my staff. And he said, you've never even worked in tech. He said, you just admitted to me that you practiced medicine and this is your first tech interview and you still know more than my staff. He said, I have one problem. I can't hire you to be a network engineer. I was expecting something junior. He says, I'm going to make you a senior network engineer. And my eyes bugged out of my head. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, look, he said, you are so good with zero experience. Do you know what's going to happen when you have experience? He said, you're going to be so bored so fast. I'm going to put you on the senior engineering team with the goal to move you to the design team or the architecture team as soon as you're ready. So they put me on the most senior non-architecture team they had. Within 6 months later, I was the lead architect for my team. And I loved it. And I will always be grateful for Devendra for taking a chance on me. Devendra basically looked at me, he looked at my background, and he took a chance on me. And I will be eternally, eternally, eternally grateful for that. So we formed this because I wanted to work in tech and I had come from a medicine background, but I really wanted to work in tech. So let's talk about our system and how it can help you. Whether you train with us, I'll tell you how to do it. And if you train on your own, I'll still tell you the secrets of our system. Because either way, I just want you to get hired. The first part of our system is that no matter what, there is never no such thing as no experience. Literally, there is no such thing as no experience. 100% of everything you've done in your life can and will make you a better architect, can and will help you get hired if you know how to draw the conclusion between your past life and your future life. And if you guys desire, I will do the following. I will help you pick, in the end of this call, you can say, this is my background, and I will show you how you can make it relatable to cloud architecture if that's something you desire. So let's now talk about certain things. I'm going to give you some examples from my old life, my old career, and I'm going to show you that no career is invalid. If you've done help desk, great. If you've done software work, even though you won't code in our world, great. If you've done customer service, great. It all ties together. Life is cumulative. So let's talk about some of these things. Let's talk about my first real job. Prior to medicine, I worked as a paramedic. We were the people that in an emergency in the US, somebody dials 911, in the UK, they dial 999, and we show up. You know, whether it's a car accident, a heart attack, or any of these things, we just show up. So that's what we do. So what did I learn from being a paramedic? And how did it help me be an architect? First thing that I learned as a paramedic is to stay calm in a crisis. Now, this may not sound like something major to you, but let me tell you the following. When you are an architect and you've designed, a $500 million system and it's not working, there's going to be stress. And if you're calm, you will solve that. You'll raise the energy in the room and people will love you. If you're not calm, here's what's going to happen. Your prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain, is going to shut down. As the prefrontal cortex shuts down, your amygdala is going to kick in, which is this particularly nasty part of the brain that's responsible for freeze, fight, or flight. And we have it in common with crocodiles and alligators. It's an attack, attack, attack mindset. Problem is, when we have that attack, attack, attack mindset, we're not real good at cognitive function, which means we can't solve complex problems. This is really seriously important. In fact, when our heart rates go above a certain place, we also can't solve complex problems for the most people, unless they're extremely, extremely fit and extremely well trained. The first thing that I learned as an architect, to be a better architect by being a paramedic, was how to be calm. Now, I learned another really valuable skill by being a paramedic is how to get to the bottom of things quickly. Now, this is something you will always use in your life as an architect. See, a customer is going to call you and they're going to basically say, hey, I've got this problem that needs to be solved, or I think I might like to go to the cloud. And the first thing you need to do is figure out what their business goals are, because nobody buys tech is to solve a business problem. Then figure out what would you like to achieve with the technology. Then ask, what are their competitors doing? Ask what their legal regulatory environment is, what they've done in the past, what's worked, what's not. You got to start there. Then you're going to have to investigate the system after system after system after system after system. You're going to have to do these kind of things. It is absolutely critical. And the faster you can get to the bottom of things, the better architect you're going to be. If you can get to the bottom of things in 8 hours versus 8 months, you're much better. If you can get to the bottom of things in 2 months versus 6 months, you're a better architect. The solution costs the customer less, and they will pay a lot more for your services because you're fast, efficient, and you're good. So what I learned by being a paramedic, how to stay calm in a crisis, and how to get to the bottom of things quickly. Now let's talk about where else that's useful. You know what happens when things break? You know how complicated these environments are like? When you have 50,000 subnets and 20,000 remote locations and 50,000 servers and 1,000 load balancers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you can get to the bottom of things quickly, you can quickly solve problems either in an outage, an emergency, or during design. So what I learned as an architect is how to stay calm and how to get to the bottom of things quickly. Now, I also learned a couple more things that matter and I carry over to my everyday life as an architect. The first thing that I learned is to prioritize. Now, we paramedics and medical people are real good at this. You've got 3 people in a car accident and 1 ambulance. Who do you take to the hospital first? Who do you take to the hospital second? Who do you take to the hospital third? Make the wrong decision and people will die. So we get really good at it. Oh, wow. Where does that pertain to architecture? Do you know you're never going to ever in your life build a perfect architecture? Even when clients come to me for billion-dollar-plus designs, we never build a perfect architecture. Now you're going to say, why not? You got a big budget. There is always going to be a business imperative, a legal environment, a regulatory rule that's going to force you to do something that is not optimal. So you're going to have to prioritize. Or better yet, you've got a customer with no budget, you're going to have to figure out the most important things to do. You are always going to have to prioritize, and paramedics learn first, because if they make the wrong decision, someone dies. Let me tell you, in architecture, make the right decisions and you will be better off. Now, I learned one more thing by being a paramedic that you wouldn't realize. It's changed my life forever. Architecture work in every part of their life. I learned by being a paramedic, you always have more resources than you think. I've been in the field. I've had to improvise things. I've made more things out of tape and towels to basically get someone back to health than you could possibly imagine. Things that I've used to cauterize wounds in an emergency environment. There's always something you have at your disposal, even if it looks absolutely crazy. So you always have more resources than you need. So what did I learn by being a medic that made me an absolutely great architect? How to stay calm, how to get to the bottom of things quickly, how to prioritize, and how to be able to scrounge for resources, because you always have more than you need. I'm going to give you my next job. And this is where you're going to say, Mike's crazy. And that's okay. But I'm going to show you why I'm not really crazy here. Do you know how I learned to be an architect? I'm going to tell you right now how I learned to be an architect. It's when I practiced medicine. Literally speaking, when I practiced medicine, this is how I became a great architect. So here's what happened. As in medicine, I learned a couple of things. First and foremost, in medicine, I learned that you can be great at one thing, that there's no possibility to be great at a lot of things. So the least hireable person in the entire world is the 10x AWS certified individual. Can't hire them for anything, literally anything, completely worthless. Here's what I learned from medicine. In medicine, we go to school for 4 years undergraduate to learn how the body works, 4 years in medical school to learn about medicine, a 3-year internship / residency to basically learn what to do. And if we want to do any kind of specialty, we need another 3 to 5 year fellowship. So all in all, it works out to be about 17 years of full-time training prior to entry-level practice. 17 years. So now you'd think after 17 years, someone's covering everything everywhere from the toenails to the eyeballs. No, not one bit. With the exception of the general medicines, here is what we're actually talking about. So as follows. The heart is the size of my human fist. Do you know there's more than 10 kinds of cardiologists just for the heart, which means 170 years of medical training to physicians, and they still can't even cover the whole heart. Now compare that to the 10x AWS certified person that thinks they know it all. They don't even know what they don't know. Now you give somebody that's got an expert portfolio, they're hired every single time. So what did I learn? And I got to tell you, what did I learn very quickly? And Diego Santos, we do cover a lot of these things in our training course, and we'll answer your question along with everybody else's question as soon as the presentation's done. So that's what I learned, the depth of knowledge. And you know what? Throughout my career and all the people I've trained, I basically said, don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Become an expert in one thing. And when I did this with my students and my clients, something amazing happened. They went from basically being able to get mid-level mediocre jobs to great jobs because it's really hard to find an expert. And it's a lot easier to learn a lot about one thing than it is to be good at everything anyway. So not only is it an easier way to become an expert, you're going to get paid a lot more in your career. You're going to get hired a lot more frequently. Companies are going to demand you, and your career will go like this instead of being flatlined because you're a jack of all trades and master of none. So I learned that in medicine. I've applied that to everything I've ever done in my life. And what it has done for me has been amazing. And all of my students and graduates over the last 2 decades. Now, in medicine, I learned how to be an architect. See, medicine, architecture, consulting, architecture, same job, literally identical job. See, here's what happens in medicine. Patient comes into the office and they say, they've got a complaint. It's called the chief complaint. My throat hurts, my back hurts, whatever. That's realistically speaking, patient's chief complaint. So someone comes into the office and they say, my throat hurts. And I say, okay, your throat hurts. Now I ask a bunch of questions. What makes your throat better? What makes your throat worse? What makes this pain better? What makes it go away? And so I ask some questions. Then here's what I do as a doctor, nurse practitioner, physician assistant. Their throat hurts. I stick in a tongue depressor, a flashlight, I look in their throat, and I'm like, wow, it's red. Then what do? I say the most likely cause of a red sore throat in a patient is beta hemolytic strep, group B, and I prescribe amoxicillin, an penicillin drug 4 times a day. That's it. So now let's pretend I'm an architect today, because for the last 25 years, I've been an architect, and when I don't volunteer and practice medicine, I'm an architect. So I meet with that client. I go to the client and I say, what's going on, Mr. Client? And they say, our systems are bogged down. We've grown 27% this year, and we need something that's going to help us grow for the next 5 years. I say, okay. And just like my patient, I say, can I examine your systems and ask the tech questions? And he's like, of course, go ask what you need. So then I go to this engineer and she tells me one thing. And I go to this next engineer, he tells me something. And I go to this director and she tells me something. I do an investigation. Now, after I do this investigation, I make a plan. And you know what that plan's called? Is architecture. So doctor meet with the patient, architect meet with the client. Doctor asks some questions. Architect asks some questions. Doctor do an exam. Architect examine the systems. Doctor use all that knowledge of the way the human body works to make a diagnosis. Architect use all your knowledge of the end-to-end system design and how they work to design an architecture. Medicine give the drug. Architecture build the plan. The job of a doctor and the job of an architect is identical. The job of a management consultant of walking in somewhere, starting with the executive, getting executive buy-in, asking all the right questions, taking the information from the right questions. That isn't what architects do. Be an architect and your career will be absolutely amazing. So I definitely learned that, and that's what I recommend doing. So That's what I learned. I learned how to actually become an architect while I actually practice medicine. Okay, so let's now talk about how I got hired for the people that just may have joined us. So I started asking questions of recruiters. I figured out what was necessary. I figured out what my skill set was versus what employers were. I did a gap analysis. I filled in a gap between my skill set and the true things employers wanted. Had nothing to do with job descriptions, but the true things employers wanted. And then I became what they wanted. And instantly I got my first tech job. So let's talk about what companies actually want. I don't care what's in a job description, and we'll talk about job descriptions later. I have never applied to a job for which I ever matched the job description in my entire life. I've interviewed with 5 companies and I've been hired by all 5. And realistically speaking, when it comes to you being interviewed, if you've interviewed more than 3 times in total and you haven't been hired, there is a problem. Problem with interview skills, technical competency, emotional intelligence, attitude, and we can help you fix it easily. But you should never go more than 3 job interviews to get hired with 3 separate companies, because if you do and you're not getting hired, there's a problem. So don't keep hitting your head against the wall. Don't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Change your tactic just like I did, and we'll get you hired, or you'll get yourself hired. Either case. So what do hiring managers desire? Now, I got to tell you, I have asked thousands and thousands of hiring managers over my career. I'm also going to tell you that I have been a hiring manager and I've interviewed well over 5,000 people in my career. And I know what I hire, and I know what other hiring managers hire, and I know what we look for. So here's what hiring managers told me overwhelmingly after doing a 20-year research project. Hiring managers want someone that can actually do the job. That means technically competent. This has nothing to do with experience. It has to do with your capabilities. The 14-year-old hacker that's better than the 50-year-old security specialist is the one I'm hiring. I'm going to say that again. The best person for the job. I don't care at all about their experience, nor does any hiring manager. That's an HR thing, and we'll tell you why later. We hiring managers care, can you do the job? That's it. Number 1 is, can you do the job? Now, number 2 is also pretty important. Can you be trusted? Now, this, I'm going to tell you, ends 90+% of all job interviews. Can you be trusted? So here's what happens on 90% of interviews. I've interviewed over 5,000 people in my life, and 4,950 have lied to me on their interview. So here's what happens. I ask someone a technical question. They could just simply say, I've not had the opportunity to learn that yet, but I'm highly energetic, I'm highly motivated, I'm highly enthusiastic. And if this was part of my job, I would learn it quickly, but I know a lot about X, Y, and Z. So if you want to check my technical competency, these are great places for you to ask me questions. That works, but you lie to the manager, and here's what happens. You go on here, what is OSPF? And someone says, open shortest path first. And I say, what's it used for? And they make up a story. It's used for the little rabbits to run around your network. And it's now all I know is they lied to me. All I heard is that they lied to me. Do you think any manager is going to ask a question that we don't know the answer to? Of course we're not. So the second someone bluffs, we've taken a good candidate that may not know an answer, and we've instantly thrown them in trash in our mental minds. Now, we're going to be highly polite to this person because they're there, and we're going to give them some kind of a stupid excuse like, I'm sorry you lack experience, or, you'll come back to us in a few years, or whatever. And it's going to be completely unrelated to the actual problem. We can't hire people we can't trust. You just can't do it. So someone that is technically competent, competency is, can you do it? Experience is how long you've been working. You can be doing something wrong for 20 years. That's experience to me. That's meaningless to me. Competency matters to hiring managers, and trustworthiness. So don't lie on an interview. If you do, it will be ended. You will never get hired, and we're going to know. So, it's not like you can fluff or bluff your way through, professionals that are asking you questions in their area of expertise. So it's my recommendation. Don't lie. Every person I've coached over the past few decades, I've convinced not to lie. They're like, Mike, I didn't lie. I told them I didn't have the opportunity to learn this, and this, but I really was motivated this, and they hired me on the spot. And he said, you're right. They just want someone that can do the job and they can trust. They don't expect me to know everything. They expect me to be good at something and ideally great at one thing. So what's next? What do all of us hiring managers care about, especially in tech? Are you safe? Safety means so much. Here's what I mean by safety. Safety means you know what you know, and you know what you don't know, and you don't do things that you don't know without getting help and advice first. This is critical. I'm going to tell you, I've seen $100 million outages. I've seen bankruptcies from somebody that didn't know what they were doing, that literally got on somebody's system and just started wreaking havoc on it because they thought they could figure it out along the way. Now, I got to tell you, that ends someone's career forever, then known as the person that bankrupted an organization. But it's not just that. You make a mistake in an organization that has 80,000 people and 30,000 people get laid off because you don't know what you know and don't know what you don't know. You really hurt a lot of people. So remember that when you're working on tech. And that's why we want someone that can do the job, someone that's trustworthy, and someone that knows their limitations, that's safe. So big three things, immediate. Now, what are those other things we hiring managers care about? So your energy level, do you want to hire this? Wake me up when it's time to work. Or do you want to hire someone that's excited and fired up? And they're in the office. And guess what? There's no work to be done. So you know what they do in the meantime when there's no work to be done? They're learning something. They're becoming better. They're doing great examples. And these are the kind of things that really help you get a job. And I see there's some questions on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and we promise you we'll answer these questions, but don't lie. Don't put anything on your resume that you're not an expert in. And Terraform is not a cloud architect skill anyway. So if you want to be a cloud architect, definitely don't learn Terraform. And we'll tell you more about why these things are later. Now, they're very useful for engineering, but not architectural roles. So what do employers want? Someone that can do the job, someone that can be trustworthy, someone that's competent and safe, someone that is energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the world, the job. So these are the kind of things that you're looking for. Now, what else do employers desire? And I'll answer all the questions once we get to the question and answer section. Employers want someone that can bring out the best in others. That means emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence has a bigger impact on your career than any other factor. I'm going to say that again. Emotional intelligence has a bigger impact on your career than any other factor. It has a massive impact on your salary. It has a massive impact on you getting hired. Just studying emotional intelligence on average will increase your salary of $29,600 per year. Over the course of a 30-year career, that's almost $1 million. And it also gets you hired sooner. So study emotional intelligence. It's a critical part of our training. And if you're not with us, the Goldman people do it for a few $1,000s. We're a lot cheaper than that, but make sure you study this. It is critical. What else do organizations desire in their architects or their employees in tech in general? Someone that's a team player. For some reason, some of the certification providers have convinced people that you're going to do everything. This isn't even related to the job. Cloud architects like me design. That's all we do is we meet with clients and we design. We don't build, we don't code, we don't use Terraform. All that stuff is used by different people. We don't do sysup, we design. Architects design, and that is it. We design, we present, and we're real good at it. So, making sure you have the right skill sets. And the reason I say it's required to be a team player is this. You're going to be part of an architecture team, most likely in your career. My video is funny, so I'm just going to undo this for a second. And when you're part of this architecture team, here's what your life is actually going to look like. You might be a cloud infrastructure architect like me that focuses on the infrastructure. You may have some generic jack of all trade architects in your team that kind of just fill in the gaps. You're going to have a cloud security architect. You're going to have a cloud IAM architect. And yes, I definitely separated them out. You're going to have some cloud big data architects that focus on big data environments like this. These are the kind of things that you're going to work on. So you're going to be part of a team. And you know what? In that team, we cloud architects design it. You're going to have some cloud engineers on that team that might build it or also give you some guidance on the deep engineering weeds. You know who else is going to be on the team? DevOps people, because you might ask them to do some software releases for the things, but as an architect, you are going to design. So you're going to be on a team and a big team, and your ability to manage that team, your ability to lead that team, this is what's going to give you the job. It's completely related to your ability to lead a team, to bring all the pieces and parts together, to design a solution that's going to delight the customer. This is exactly what it takes to be hired and be absolutely great. The last thing that organizations want are someone that goes above and beyond. So recently speaking, I had seen someone, I knew this person, and she posted on LinkedIn that she thought the 40-hour work week was too much. Now, I knew this person, so I called her and said, did you just realize you made the world know they can't hire you? And she says, what are you saying? I said, employers want someone that's willing to go above and beyond. You just showed the world that you're not even willing to do standard. When in reality, you're probably going to do a 50-hour week and a good job. And she's like, oh, I never thought of it that way. So I'm going to tell you one more time what hiring managers desire. See, I like to think in terms in practical terms. My wife is a shoe addict. My wife is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, but she's a shoe addict. She has over 300 pairs of shoes, and there's shoe boxes that'll probably never be worn. So I asked her, I said, what goes into your shoe buying decision? And she says, I buy what I like. And then she says, Mike, how do you buy tech? I said, well, I buy the tech that's supposed to do the job from the brands that I trust because I buy what I like. And she says, same thing. So when a hiring manager hires somebody, they hire something they like and they want. So be what they want and you'll always be hired and you'll get paid a lot more. So what do hiring managers desire? First and foremost, someone that can do the job, someone that can be trusted, someone that knows their limitations, meaning competent and safe, energy, enthusiasm, passion, a team player, and someone that is willing to go above and beyond. So if you want to be a great cloud architect or a cloud engineer or anything like this, guess what? You can. You'll have a wonderful career. Just be what the hiring manager desires. Now, the next question is, what the heck is a cloud architect? And why am I even talking about this? See, this is so obvious for people like me that have been architects for the last few decades. It's so obvious for every cloud architect that I know, working in Amazon and Azure and Palo Alto and Dell and Cisco. They all have their own clouds, and Google. I know what these architects do because I've been an architect for almost 2.5 decades, and my students have been architects for decades as well. So here's what architects do. We design. And that's all we do. We design, we meet with clients, we ask business, legal, technical, regulatory requirements, we design a situation, we present it back to the customer, we get buy-in, and then we turn it over to team to somebody else to go build it. We do ROI modeling, we do presentations, we get involved in the sales process, but we design. There's no coding as a cloud architect. There's no Terraform, there's no scripting, and guess what? You're probably never in your entire career as an architect going to use the management console or the CLI or an API ever. These are not architect skills. When I left engineering 25 years ago, that was the last time I configured a router or a switch or a firewall because architects don't even touch the equipment. We design it. The architect designs the building, they design it. The construction crew builds it. Well, guess what? In architecture, we design, and as soon as we turn the design over, we give it to a group of cloud engineers. These cloud engineers are the people that actually go and actually build it. So now you know what people do. Now you know what the jobs are. You know how to prepare. But don't just listen to me. Don't just listen to every single architect that I've worked with for the last couple of decades. Do the following. Listen to the people that hire cloud architects. See, what happened is there's these job descriptions that are out there for cloud architects. And really all they are is someone went to a job site like Indeed. This is what I would do. I would literally cut and paste the job description for someone and someone's job. And then from there, after I saw their job description, I would cut it, put it into Word. Then I would say, well, none of the things that I need are in this job description. I would add mine and I would re-upload it to ZipRecruiter, Dice, or Indeed. Now, after I did this, you know what the next hiring manager that doesn't know how to write a job description like me would do? We're going to pull down his, add his stuff. By the time you're done, these job descriptions have 500 different careers on it. And there's another reason this occurs. And we'll talk about that later when we talk about HR people, which we skip every single time. So let's talk about the actual job and what people actually do. And I'm going to give you the link where you can actually find our source of information because we don't make anything up. We research everything so heavily. So Gartner, and I've worked with Gartner for 2 decades now. Gartner is always investigating the bleeding edge of what we do. You've got a new router, Gartner will investigate it. You've got a new firewall, they'll investigate it. Security trends, they'll investigate it, and they will publish it in the best and most important locations. They are your tech research go-to people. They are the gurujis in this world. So Gartner saw all these stupid job descriptions for cloud architects that were so crazy and so silly, and that made all of us and the architects actually laugh. They decided just to ask the CIOs, what do you want in the people you actually hire? So the way it works is you've got the chief executive officer, and those of us that fulfill this role, we come up with the strategy of the business. Then underneath us, we typically hire a chief information officer. The chief information officer uses IT to meet the CEO's strategy. Who hires the VP of IT, who hires the director of IT, who hires the initial hiring manager. So if you want to know who's doing the job, ask the CIO, writing your checks. So Gartner did this. Gartner said, these job descriptions are nuts. It's the most crazy thing we've ever seen in our life. We know they don't reflect the job. So Mr. Hiring Manager, Mr. Organization, Mrs. Organization, what do you want? And here's what was said. And it was published in CIO Magazine, and all of you should read CIO Magazine, because if you're an architect, you're going to be in front of CIOs every single day. So, and CEOs periodically too. So here's what was published in CIO Magazine. Here's what the people that are hiring cloud architects want. First and foremost, they want someone that can lead the cultural change for cloud adoption, leadership. Then they say someone that can develop and coordinate an architecture, design, develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption process, design and leadership. Then they say helping to find the talent with the necessary skills, assessing applications, hardware and software, establish best practices across the company, sounds like leadership to me, selecting cloud providers and vetting third-party services, half tech, half leadership, overseeing governance and mitigating risk, more leadership skills, working with the IT security people to help develop an IT security response in a secure environment, tech and leadership, because you're working across departments, manage budgets and estimate costs, have business acumen skills and operative skill, leadership, leadership, leadership. Note what you did not hear. You didn't hear code, because you won't. You did not hear CLI. You did not hear management console. You did not hear Terraform. You did not hear SysOps. You did not hear DevOps. You didn't hear anything from these completely unrelated careers. You heard design, coordinate, lead. And that's what we architects have done for decades. This is a job that I've done for decades. This is what my graduates are doing that are working in companies. And these are the cloud architects that we talk to every single day. These are their jobs. So let's get way out of this silly job description and actually learn the job, master the job, so you can get the job of your dreams, you can get hired and build a good life for yourself. So how do you become great? How do you develop these skills? Well, I'm going to tell you what we do with our students. And if you want to train with us, we'd love to work with you. Chris from my team will put a link to our training, as well as a 20% coupon code, as well as a number for our office in case people want to call us. But I'm going to make our training methods available so all of you know how to do it. Do it with us, do it on your own. I just want you to get hired, and I want you to have a great career. So the first and foremost is to become technically competent. Now, if you're one of our students, we have a 250 to 400 hour program based upon your background to get you technically competent and hired, where we cover everything you need. Now, if you're not one of our students, here's what you need to do to get technical competency. First and foremost, you must know what is the cloud. And I got to tell you, when you strip out all the words like elastic and cloud, and you get rid of all the marketing fluff, the cloud is nothing more than a virtual network and a virtual data center. I worked on the first cloud in 1996, it was Frame Relay. By 1999, I was working on the next cloud, which was ATM. By 2002, I was working on the next cloud, which was VPLS. Then I was working on the other clouds prior to these clouds, and we were all advising the cloud providers. So I've done this for decades now. And the cloud is not new. It's just the marketing for it is new. So if you're with us, you've got that 250 to 400 hours of content. If you are on your own, here is what you must do. You must start with Cisco, because the network is the foundation for everything. And if you don't have a foundation, you've got nothing. I need you to read, if you're not one of our students, 3,000 to 5,000 pages of reading material from Cisco. I need you to learn the following. I need you to learn about OSPF and interior gateway protocols. I need you to learn about BGP, exterior gateway protocols, tuning BGP, traffic engineering with BGP, IBGP, EBGP, all across the BGP spectrum. I got to tell you, that's a few thousand pages right there. You've got to learn NAT, static NAT, one-to-many NAT, ways to NAT overlapping IP addresses with organizations that purchase organizations, NAT for internet, NAT that'll be static when you want to use a private address to be reached from the internet at all times, NAT overload, basically egress only NAT. You've got to learn how to do all those kind of things with NAT. You need to understand QoS. You need to understand VLANs and 802.1q tagging. You need to understand Q and Q tagging, Ethernet over MPLS. You need to understand WAN technologies. and you need to know Ethernet at layer 1 and layer 2 really well. What's going on with those MAC addresses? What's going on with those CAM tables? Then you need to learn access list and packet filtering. You ideally should learn 802.1x authentication as well as private VLANs, which are analogous to containers in the networking world. So we've got these. You're going to need to learn firewalls. Well, let's take that out of Cisco. So after you read the few thousand pages that we described, assuming you're not one of our students, now you need security. So go to Cisco, probably only about 500 pages of reading for this. It's going to be easier. Go to Palo Alto, probably about 500 pages. Go to Fortinet and Checkpoint, probably another 500 pages. And from there, you're going to know security. So now we covered networking and security. This is bare minimum to take on one of these roles if you're not one of our students. Now virtualization. You know the tech that makes the cloud possible? It's virtualization. So guess what? Go to VMware and read all of their documentation. Again, it's going to be 400 or 500 pages, but you will learn virtualization. And when you're done this, go to Docker and Kubernetes and VMware and learn containers. Again, 400 or 500 pages of reading, and you're going to get it. I don't care if you can configure it. I care if you can design it and know how it works. Then I need you to go to F5 and read all about load balancers, and this is going to be extensive. I need you to go to F5 and learn about DNS because they've been doing this stuff forever. When you are done with DNS and the load balancers, now that you know firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, routers, and switches, and you know servers and containers, now guess what you need to do? Now you're going to need to learn IAM. So you need to read about Radius, TACACS, and Microsoft Active Directory. Probably should build yourself an Active Directory server too. Then I need you to learn the cloud. You know what? How do you learn the cloud? I have all my students build the cloud. So I need you to become great at the cloud. Read about the OpenStack Ansible cloud, read about the Nutanix cloud. These clouds will tell you everything about how they work. It's not like AWS where they actually have to hide it. These are clouds that organizations put in their data centers, and they're amazing. So read about these and you will know the cloud. Then obviously read AWS white papers, GCP white papers, Azure white papers, and now you're starting to get there. Now comes storage. If you're with us, it's covered, but if you're not, go to Dell, EMC, and IBM and read about storage. It is not enough to know that object storage is S3 and EBS is block storage. You need depth of knowledge. What if you have a 12-hour storage conversation? I've had these with the storage area network team. You got to be able to talk about storage in depth to another 300 to 500 pages on storage. Then you're starting to get it. So now you've got your firewalls, you got your switches, you got your networking, you got your DNS. Now you're getting to a point of some technical competency. That is minimum. Like I said, we provide that kind of heavy duty training to our students, but if you're not one of our students, make sure you get it. Now, let's talk about certifications and how they're going to get you help. A certification helps you get an interview. Do not get multiple level associate certifications. I'm going to repeat that again. Do not get a bunch of associate certifications. They will not be helpful to you. Here's what I mean. Don't get a cloud practitioner, a certified solution architect associate, a SysOps associate, and a DevOps associate. Do not do this, or you will be hard to get you hired and your salary will drop like a stone. You're going to look like a jack of all trades and a master of none. It'll be very hard to get you hired. And even if we do, your salary will be low. Why is it going to be low? You look unfocused. They're very separate careers. So I practice medicine. One of my best friends is a mechanic. He's coming to my house today to help me with some technical things. If I worked as a mechanic for 20 years before I became a doctor, would people really think I'm as good of a doctor as if I spent my entire life as a doctor? Of course not. So don't build a jack of all trades resume. Do this. If you want to be an architect, get architecture certifications. Start with the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. Skip that practitioner. Completely get rid of it. Here's why. There's no benefit and there are no jobs. And guess what? The average cloud architect earns $600 a day. And a good one can easily earn $1,000 to $1,500 a day. A good one, but an average, just average, basic average. And none of my students are average, but an average student, earns $600 a day. So if you spend 2 months studying for the cloud practitioner and you're not working as an architect, this already cost you $24,000. So stop doing anything that's a waste of your time. So if you want to be an architect, start straight with the Certified Solution Architect Associate. The second you're done, that goes straight to the Certified Solution Architect Professional. And now what? That's just intro to intro. The Certified Solution Architect Professional is about 10% of what you need to do to be able to do the job. Now, if you're in our training, you're going to get the other 90%. But, you got, 50% of that with the Certified Solution Architect Professional and reading those 10 or 15,000 pages that I described. You're halfway there. So if you're with us, we cover everything. But if not, you're halfway there. So now what? One professional cloud certification is not enough. You need to pick a specialty. and then get an industry certification. So if my students, for example, want to be a cloud infrastructure architect and focus on the network, I'm helping them get a CCNP, a Cisco Certified Network Professional, along with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Note, I did not say AWS Advanced Networking. I love the AWS Advanced Networking. It's an intro to junior level networking, but it does not teach you enough to do networking on the cloud, but the CCNP does. So you have a Cisco Certified Network Professional combined with an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and you've got a resume. Now, let's say you wanted to do security. The CISSP, the CEH with practical, the CCSP, combined with the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and you look good. Let's say you want to do some cloud big data stuff, a professional level Oracle certification with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Big stuff. So no, we select from industry and we select from, what do you call it? We also select. Now we have a process for which we actually choose certifications to help people's portfolios. Chris from my team will paste that in the window in the link of Zoom, and Chris from my team will also paste that in the window for YouTube. Chris is the most recent video of how we pick certification. Now the next component, an architect is 50% technical and 50% non-technical. So I just spent all this time teaching you all the technical things that you need to do. Guess what? That's half of the job. So now let's talk about the stuff that gets you hired and the stuff that doubles or triples your pay. It is your emotional intelligence, your communication skills, your presentation skills, your business writing skills, your business acumen, your negotiation skills. This matters so much. Remember when we went through what Gartner asked for the average cloud architect, and they said, we need an architect that leads the cultural change for cloud adoption, develops and coordinates an architecture, develops a strategy and coordinates the adoption process, helping find talent with the necessary skills, assessing applications, creating a cloud broker team being the operative word, establishing best practices across the company, selecting providers, working with security people to kind of develop a joint strategy, manage budgets and operate scale. No, again, I'm going back to that. All these leadership things are there. So what must you do? You must learn to speak like an executive. I will tell you, we cover this heavily in our training. If you are not with us, Speak Easy in California has a three-day introductory course. It's about $3,000 for the 3 days. It's an intro. You probably need about 3 to 4 of them to be able to get this job, but it is very good. And if you're not training with us, I recommend them because they're good. I've done some training with them. I've sent some friends to them and they are extraordinarily good. We go higher, we go deeper, but you know what? They are great. So if you're on your own, go do that. Next is your emotional intelligence. I told you it's the best predictor of your career success. We train emotional intelligence like no one else in the world. We use all the traditional emotional intelligence tools, plus we use tools used by Navy SEALs and Olympians, plus we also use cognitive behavior therapy because that's widely used by both the elite tactical warriors, as well as Olympians, as well as medicine. And I was blessed that I actually trained under David Burns in the University of Pennsylvania, and he and Albert Ellis were basically the founders of cognitive behavior therapy. So I learned this directly from the source, and I use it with my students, and they tell me wonderful things. So make sure you train emotional intelligence. If you are not with us, Goldman does some classes, they're about $5,000. It is worth it. With us, it's all included. Why am I saying it's worth it? If an emotional intelligence class costs you $5,000 and the average person that trains emotional intelligence earns $30,000 more per year over the course of 30 years, that's $1 million you gain. So realistically speaking, this is why we talk about it so much. And this is why we cover it completely in our training. And our training is cheap. And our training is cheap for a reason. I don't need to work at all. I do this as a half business, half charity to give people a chance to have wonderful tech careers like I did, like all of my students have over the years. I used to charge $400 an hour and coach people privately. I bought all this tech so I basically can take 1 day's pay to give people the careers of a lifetime because it matters to me. But whatever you do, just get these skills. So after you're doing your emotional intelligence and your presentation training, you've got to learn business acumen. Nobody buys tech other than me or maybe some of you techies out there because they like tech. Businesses buy tech because they need to solve a problem. They need efficiencies. So when you have a technology solution and it's going to cost $10 million and people are like, how do you get the customer to buy it? I say it's easy. I show the customer the value of our $10 million solution is going to give them $80 million a year of additional sales My $10 million is nothing. They're happy. My $100 million architectures are nothing too. Make sure whatever you give to your client, and this is the secret for life, the secret for sales, the secret to business. If you sell your client something for $1, make sure they get $5 return. If you sell your customer something for $10, make them get 50 back or 100 back. Make sure your customers always benefit 10 times more than you do. And wow, watch your career succeed. Some people would call it karma. Some people would call it goes around, comes around. I just call it good business. As an architect, you are a partner with your customer. You make your customer successful, and that's your architecture career. And you never have to worry about budgets again. That's why the business acumen piece. And if you're with us, it is covered. If you're not with us, get an MBA or something. These are architect skills. Now, the last piece is getting the knowledge and the hands-on experience. Now, I told you before that architects don't configure. And they don't. But you should know how, just in case. And realistically speaking, you need to know how these pieces and parts work together. Now, I've got to tell you, when I see resumes and someone puts EC2 on their resume or S3, I look at it and I'm like, okay, trash. There's nothing wrong with knowing how to set up EC2. There's nothing wrong with setting S3, but there's nothing to it that makes you an architect just because you can set up an S3 bucket. Here's what my students do, and it's included in our training. And if you're with us, it's covered. If not, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. If you're with us, it's covered. You VPN into our servers and you do this. If you are not, go buy yourself a 16-core Xeon server. This is not a job for a notebook. It's a job for a 16-core Xeon server, a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM, and at least 3 SSDs in RAID 0 or an NVMe drive. You can pick one of these things up for less than $1,500. On this, now it's included if you're one of our training students. On this server, I need you to build a cloud and do all kinds of cool cloud architecture things. What must you know as a cloud architect? Well, the network. So get yourself an EVE-NG simulator if you desire, do some Cisco things. You can even do that on your own computer. That one's easy. So what do you do on the server? Set up server virtualization. Why? It's the technology that enables the cloud, whether it's Compute Engine, an EC2 instance, or a VM in Microsoft Azure. Virtual machines are the basis for cloud computing. And if you don't know enough about virtualization, you won't be able to do the job. So build the VMware ESXi server on that server you bought. Now, when you're done that, you need more. Go set up some Docker or Kubernetes container environments. Now you know the 2 compute platforms in the cloud. And all of my students do this. Now, after those 2 things, what do you do? Well, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, all over the web. So you know what I recommend? On your server, set up the LAMP stack on one machine or multiple machines. It doesn't matter. When you're done setting up the LAMP stack, set up network file shares, because that is the basis for all file sharing among all Linux and Windows systems throughout the entire world, and has been for decades. So get good at it. Then set up some server message block shares for Windows clients. Then build a firewall, because you need to know how firewalls work. Build a VPN concentrator. You need to know this. Set up an Active Directory server, because you're going to need this for IAM. Then when you're done, build a cloud. I'm not joking, just build yourself a cloud. We do it all the time. My students do it every time. I have the students build a cloud on my server. When you set up the control plane of the cloud and the data plane and your VMs, your containers, your databases, your storage environments, you know the cloud. You can't do a cloud design without knowing the cloud. So all of my students build the cloud. So these are my recommendations, whether you're with us or without us. Do this and you will be hired. You'll get paid more than you ever dreamed, but this is the skill. Note, it's not covered in certifications. Certifications is the name of the service and how to configure it. But as we read in CIO Magazine, nobody does this job. That's not the job. So do the job and you will be set and you're going to do fantastic. So do the job, learn the job. Now, what's next? So we talked about how becoming a great candidate, get depth of knowledge in a specialty, as opposed to getting 10x AWS certified, get the professional certifications, get the industry certifications, and learn some more. Cisco has a free conference, go to it. Amazon has a free conference, go to it. Azure has a free conference, go to it. Attend as much of this free training as you can. And I even recommend that to our students. I want you guys to be the best in the world. So that's what our recommendations are. Now, communication skills, you got to train this. If you're with us, it's covered. If not, I told you who to go to. It's about 15 to 20 times cheaper to train with us, but it doesn't matter. Get these skills wherever you get them. Now, make sure you learn how to make others feel good in your presence. Don't walk in the room and say, wow, you look fat today. Walk in the room and say, how are you doing today? Boy, that way that, those shoes look nice. Find something truthful. Don't lie. When you're not sincere, when you're inauthentic, people can feel it. But it's sure better to say something nice to someone and being honest and mean it than something negative. Bring out the best in others and learn to control your emotions. Emotional intelligence, which, as I've said before, has the bigger impact on your career than any other factor in the entire world, is the ability to control your emotions and others' emotions. Now let's talk about your resume. Your resume is super important here. First, I'd like to begin with, what's a resume? I know this sounds crazy. I ask this all the time and people are like, it tells people about me. No, that's not what a resume is. I want you guys to truly understand what a resume is. A resume is as follows. It's a sales document that says why someone should hire you. It is a marketing brief. It is a marketing portfolio. It is an advertisement. And when you understand that a resume is an advertisement, you know how to make that advertisement better. So what do you do on your resume? On the top line, you put as much as you can to basically say, read me, read me, read me. What is the top line on my resume? It says Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, Google Professional Cloud Architect, and then I usually list an AWS one. I don't like to get too busy with too many certs. I just list the big ones, only the big ones. Then, on your resume, you still have to get somebody to read it. So why is it so important to get it to read? So I want you to understand the life of an executive, because I didn't understand this when I was young. When I was young, I thought executives just sat there, went to meetings, waited for people to do stuff. I had no idea what their lifestyle was until I became one many years ago. Here's the lifestyle of an executive. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, yes, yes. No, thank you. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Okay, while I'm on my computer, I'm doing this. This is the life. I mean, I get 1,000 messages per day, minimum, and that's on a slow day. I've had over 150 messages since I've been on this meeting. So executives don't have a big attention span because they're busy. So here's the average attention span of the executive, 1/10 of 1 second. Meaning, and the hiring manager, it's no more than 1 second. If you can't convince that manager to read your thing within the first second, they won't read it at all. So it's got to be read. That's why on the top line, Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, Google Professional Cloud Architect, blah, 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 blah. Big, giant, bold, like 20, 30-point letters. Now, the next thing, if you have it on your resume, get rid of it. It's the kiss of death. It's called an objective. Do not put an objective on your resume. An objective says what you want from the employer-employee relationship. Do you know what the employer cares about what you want? Nothing. They have a problem. They have too much work to be done. They have a problem to be solved, and now they're going to go spend money to have the problem solved. My wife likes shoes. I told you, she loves them. She has 300 pairs. She doesn't go to the store and say, shoes, what's your opinion of me? Do you think you'd look nice on my feet? Do you think, she doesn't care. She's like, oh, wow, these shoes are cute. I got to have them. Mike, I just got a new pair of shoes. Look at them. Okay, so don't put an objective on your resume, signaling what you want. You're basically telling the hiring manager you are a selfish person and you only want to take from them. You want to give to them. So here's what you should do. You should put an executive summary. The executive summary convinces them why they should continue reading your resume and how you can help them. So now that basic guy's gone, Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, GCP, Professional Cloud Architect, oh, that looks good. Then the executive summary. And I'm going to write one on demand with you. So it's live. So who knows what it's going to be. I might say accomplished technology professional with 25 years of 25 years of designing architectures for billion-dollar-plus designs, the ability to lead large groups of teams, experience with business development, experience in bringing back the others. See, this is what happens when you design on the fly. But 2 or 3 sentences in a row that convince the hiring manager why they need you. How can you help the organization? Remember, the organizations hire because they have a problem. So if you can put it in there how you can help them, you are hired every time and you're paid more. So make the people read it and then read an executive summary. Now what? What else must be on there? You've got to get your experience on your resume. Has to be there, has to be there, has to be there. So what do you do? Well, you can do one of 2 things. If you're my students, you put a Go Cloud Architect section on there. If you're not one of my students, you put a research and development section on there. Ours looks better, but either one will work. In that research and development section or Go Cloud Architect section, do the labs that matter. If you say, I set up an EC2 instance, no one's going to care. And the reason no one's going to care is I use well, I know this sounds terrible, but my friend has the most beautiful little 8-year-old daughter I have ever seen. And when I need the things configured on the cloud, I have her do it. She clicks, and she says EC2, and oh my God, it's the cutest thing I've ever seen. But nobody's going to pay you $600 a day or $1,200 a day to spin up an EC2 instance when a beautiful 8-year-old little girl can do it, or an 8-year-old boy. It doesn't matter. It's not complicated. But what they do care is that you know what you're doing. What is a cloud migration? What is everything on the cloud? You take the stuff from the network in the data center and move it to the cloud, which is just another network in the data center. It's just been virtualized. So if you don't know the stuff in the network in the data center, guess what? You're not moving anything to the cloud. And that's why they're looking for all this infrastructure experience, because that's the job. Take it from one data center to another data center. Cloud native is 90% dead. 90% is lift and shift. One of the cloud providers made a business decision that kind of killed cloud native. You're going to see a lot of marketing collateral around cloud native for the next year or so, because the cloud providers want it back. Because when you're cloud native, you can't leave. Now, cloud native is awesome architecturally too, but understand this. So build that resume and put that research and development section. And here's what employers care about. Set up server virtualization using VMware ESXi. Set up and deploy Docker and Kubernetes containers. Set up and deploy network file system for file system sharing among Unix systems. Set up Windows file sharing systems. Built an IP tables UFW firewall to promote security. Built an OpenSSH VPN concentrator. Set up and deployed a Microsoft Active Directory for domain authentication. Built an OpenStack Ansible cloud. Connected and federated OpenStack Ansible cloud to a Microsoft Active Directory. Now you've got a portfolio of real experience that employers care about. So all of our students put it in the Go Cloud Architect section. If you're not our student, put it in a research and development section. You've got to get your experience out there. Now I try and get my students published whenever possible because it increases their brand recognition. So if you're with us, we probably have that covered in some way, shape, or form. But if you're not, make sure you go out there and start writing and publishing. But if you're going to publish, it's got to be great. Don't publish something that's not perfect, because remember, the world will see it. So publish things that are fantastic. So, and Christopher, we'll get to your question. You've got a great question. We'll get to it in about 2 minutes. So please bear with us. But and I'll tell you how we would do that. The last part of our system, realistically speaking, is to bypass HR. Now, I hate saying this. I don't want you to think I dislike HR, but HR will keep you from getting your first cloud job. You have to skip HR or try to. Here is the problem with HR. HR people are really good. They're really smart. They're capable people of doing what HR does, determining your salary, benefits, and compensation for a certain type of job, and finding people that fit in with an organization's culture. They are fantastic at that. You know what HR is really bad at? Gauging technical competency. In fact, they have zero ability to do it whatsoever. Now I'm going to let you in on a dirty little secret. Do you know how many applicants it takes to actually fill a position that goes through HR, and why my hiring managers skip HR? It is as following. It takes this. So when a company like a cable company, that you probably wouldn't consider the highest performing organization in the world with the best customer service, it takes on average of 3,000 applicants to hire one person. You know what it takes with a high performing company? Upwards of 5,000 applications to fill one person. Now, can anybody really read them? No. So do you know what HR does? HR does the following. They put up roadblocks to keep you from applying unless you've got 1 million years of experience. So here's what it actually looks like. So I need DevOps experience, software development experience, networking experience, security experience, 14 Olympic gold medals and 50 years experience, but I also need you to be under 30 with the 50 years experience. Forget HR. They're in the way. HR has no ability to gauge your competency. So you know what HR does? They hire people with they recommend to the hiring manager these people with 1,000,001 years of experience doing everything. Then these people come up to us and the hiring manager, and we ask them a tech question, and they don't know anything about anything because they only know a little bit about a lot of things. And there's no architect that knows a little about a lot of things. You got to know how stuff works. So we reject all of them, and then we get darn frustrated. And I've done this so many times in my career, you can't even imagine. After we get frustrated, here is what we do next. We then call our favorite recruiter. I've got a lot of great recruiters. I've worked with this guy, Steve, in New York City forever. He sent me on all 5 job interviews in my life, and I got hired for all 5. Steve is a great recruiter. here is the process. I call Steve and say, Steve, I need a cloud architect that knows a lot about networking. But what really matters to me is they've got good communication skills, a lot of BGP knowledge. They can speak well, they can write well, and they've got executive presence. And Steve says, I've got a couple of people that I'm thinking about. Let me get back to you tomorrow. And I say, great, Steve. So Steve says, Mike, guess what? I've got these 3 people. I'm going to recommend them all. I've got Raj. Raj is a CCIE who also has been working on the cloud for a few years, and he's got the best networking knowledge. I've got this guy, Mohammed. Mohammed is a CCNP. He's got great networking knowledge, great cloud knowledge. I got to tell you, I've seen his writing, and it's some of the best I've ever seen. You're going to like that. Guess what? I've got this guy, Diego. Diego is an expert on security on the cloud. I know you're looking for more networking, but he's got a really strong background, and I think you want to talk to him. And, oh, by the way, he's got a fantastic personality. So, regardless on these things. So, these are, for example, the kind of things that I actually get. And I get these things very importantly from the management team. So now as a hiring manager, I'm biased. Raj comes in, I'm like, oh yeah, you're the CCIE guy. I heard you're great with networking. And then Mohammed comes in, I'm like, yeah, you're a CCNP. Oh my God, your writing is beautiful. I'm biased to like these folks. So skip HR. We now have, I think we're up to 195 recruiters that we use for our students, like 195 of them now. I build, at least 50 a week. My goal is to get to about 15,000 recruiters because our student base grows so fast. So make sure you build this, but skip HR, go directly to the hiring manager. So tech recruiters are hired by hiring manager, and here's the process. We will pay $10,000 to $50,000 or $20,000 to $50,000 to get a good employee, just because we know that HR delivers us such bad people. Not because HR is bad, not because HR is smart, they just don't know how to gauge technology professionals. So we use very good and high-end tech recruiters for those reasons. So that is our process. Our process is as follows. First, learn the things from your current background and how it's there. Translate it, because if you can't translate your past experience to your new job, your hiring manager won't be able to. Then we talked about what the hiring manager wants, so you know how to be exactly everything they want so you can get the job. Then we talked about how to build a resume that sells. Then we talked about how to get some real life experience to put on your resume. Now, in reality, architects are not going to configure things. I need you to know that you're not going to configure things. But generally speaking, as an architect, they want to know you have some baseline in network and data center technologies, because the cloud is a network and a data center. That's why I have my students do these networking and data center projects, because they need to show network and data center knowledge. Look, if you guys all came from a network and data center background, I would never have anybody do any of these labs, because architects don't configure. But most people I get with are coming from the software world. They're coming from a different career entirely. And if I don't teach people the fundamentals of the network and the data center, and some of that includes hands-on building, they're just not hireable. So that's why we do that. Let me tell you about our training for 5 minutes, and then I will answer everyone's questions. I see lots of questions, and I love answering them. I'll dedicate at least an hour to answering everyone's questions. But let me tell you about how we train people with our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We have a Cloud Architect Career Development Program that will help you go from either AWS certified to hired, or if you're not AWS certified, it doesn't matter. We'll get you certified and hired while you're in our program. Nobody leaves our program without a certified solution architect professional. And let's be fair, that certified solution architect professional is less than 10% of what's needed to be hired. Our 250-hour plus program will get you hired. Our program works as follows. Twice a week on Monday and Friday, we have a 3-hour plus live training session. And on this live training session, you guys all get to be architects, just like the real job. What'll happen is my students will come on. I will mention the technology. I will mention the business challenges, the legal goals, the regulatory constraints we have. The students in this program will literally ask me on these live 3-hour calls all the questions necessary to find my systems, baseline my systems, move forward. The students together will design an architecture, and just like real life, the students will present it back to me to try and convince me to buy the architect. And if they do it wrong, I will teach the students how to do it properly. So we do live architecture training in our program twice per week, and it equates to a minimum of 100 hours of architecture training. Now, in between our live classes, here's what we do. We have videos on demand and homework assignments that our students do. And the students do these assignments, they submit videos, they submit papers, they submit presentations, they submit anything that's necessary, career plans, resumes for us to tune, anything that we can do to try and help our students. We've got, basically speaking, about 150 hours of training for people to do. And here, basically, the students turn projects, they turn them in, and we give feedback. There is no concept of video on demand without feedback. That is crazy. That is not learning. That is you dummy, but you can't become great at anything by not being able to ask questions or participate. So twice per week, we have live training where we teach architecture, communication skills, executive presence, business acumen, that sort of thing. And in between classes, there's lots of work to work on these skills by yourself. Now, we have a lab component. Again, here's the reason we do labs. I need you to know how everything works. As an architect, you're not going to be configuring, but you must have on your resume real experience of the network and the data center, or you won't be hired. Because what is the cloud? It's a network and a data center. Everybody wants that infrastructure experience. Why do they want the infrastructure experience? Because you're taking something from a network and a data center, and you're moving it to the cloud, which is a virtual network and a data center, and you can't move what you don't understand. Imagine cooking chicken if you didn't know what chicken was. You couldn't do it. So these are the reasons. So we have this massive lab component where you work with VMware, ESXi, you set up containers, you set up the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stack, you build firewalls, you build VPN concentrators, you do NFS shares, you do server message block shares, you work with Active Directory, and you build the cloud. So you got to show that you've got some kind of cloud knowledge and experience. Otherwise, I wouldn't do the lab components, but you got to have experience somewhere. And that experience, configuring EC2 instance is meaningless to a hiring manager, but knowing the network systems and the data centers matters, because architects, we don't configure, but we can't design what we don't understand. So that's why we have this massive thing. We finished that off with approximately 30 to 40 hours of AWS training, and it nets to be about 250 hours for the average student. Now there's an additional 2 hours of content that's there that's basically bonus content our students can watch. And if we've got students that are never worked in tech before at all, like they're coming from customer service, we generally ask them to watch them. And if it takes an extra month or two for those students to get through the program, we don't care. We don't charge more. All we care is that we help our students get hired in the end, and we help them build higher salaries. So now you know about our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and it's a 16-week program to take someone that's working in tech and get them hired as a cloud architect. If someone has no background in tech at all, they've never worked in tech, no big deal. We still can get people hired very easily. It just takes us 6 to 8 months as opposed to 16 weeks. Now at this point, I would like to open up the forum for questions. My associate Chris has picked up a lot of questions, and I'm going to start answering them. The first question I think that Chris found for me came from Christopher Ebola. Interesting name. You're about to take your associate certification after you'll take the professional exam. Do you register for my program now or later? Well, our advice is you do it now. See, here's the thing. For the average person that does the Certified Solution Architect Professional, the training on their own is nothing more than what is the service and how to configure it, which is 100% completely unrelated to the job. So because of that, we like to work with people while they do their certification so we can actually teach the people what they are. So, if you understand what the block storage is, and trust me, that's a 30-minute or more minimum discussion to even understand it. And you understand object storage, which is at least another hour discussion, understanding all the storage and the metadata, then and only then can you actually do the job. So we work really hard to make sure that you guys get that. So then when you do things like the Certified Solution Architect Professional, it's silly easy. The rest of your certifications are nothing. I did the Google Professional Cloud Architect in a weekend, just by reading the book, because I knew other clouds and I knew the fundamentals. So we'll make that Certified Solution Architect, Associate, and Professional basically child's play for you. So that's why we like to bring people on that. Okay, so I see a lot of questions. I'm trying to figure out which ones I'm supposed to get to first. Chris said the next question that came to me was somebody do the experience program or the development program? We are only talking about the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. The Cloud Architect Experience Program is just a labs-based program. So we're talking about the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Now, I think there was a list of questions that I was also supposed to ask her. Wow, there's a large one, so I'm going to actually ask these questions. So Mohammed, can I describe some of the best practices if you want to migrate a legacy app to the cloud? Sure, but that's more than a 30-minute discussion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a live video demonstrating that in about a week or so. I'll do that video with my good friend Sandeep Daz. It'll be a 2 or 3 hour discussion to really talk about it. It's not something we can fit into this discussion, but I'd love to do that for you, Mohammed. Raj's question, what time do we conduct the live classes on Monday and Friday? Monday classes are at 2 p.m. Eastern, Friday, which is 7 p.m. GM, which is 7 p.m. UK time. And Friday classes are at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is 4 p.m. UK time during this time of year with sunrise. The first question from Shaifa is, how can you get a fresher into product-based companies for cloud jobs? Our program, we do it all the time. A good example is Richard Ofukar. He was in our program for 3 weeks. He's an exception. He's now working at AWS. Being a fresher is not a big deal. The key is learning the cloud and being able to provide to them and convince them you actually know the cloud and you're competent on the cloud. That's kind of what we're actually talking about here. So the next question is here from Diego Santos. You watched one of our videos where you tell us to be more hireable. We should get some certifications on Linux. I was wondering if these subjects are covered in your course. So what we cover heavily on our course is as follows. Cloud architecture from head to tail. We cover networking in extreme depth, somewhere between the CCNA level and the CCNP level, and we cover security to the CISSP level. So realistically speaking, it'll be very, very easy for any of our students to do the CCNA. They could probably do it in a weekend based upon the training we've given them. So the next question is from Virtual Circuit. Just wanted to say a heartfelt thanks to all your resources. I'm so happy I could help. It's very kind of you for your expert time in global. Very few people like this in the world. Thank you so much, Virtual Circuit. I had one of the most amazing technology careers I can describe. I have loved every last minute of it. And I really want to share my experiences to build the next generation of technology leaders. That's what we do as much as we can for free. And that's why we charge like $800 for a $25,000 class. I don't need to work. I had a really great architecture career. Our courses are expensive to run, highly expensive. I don't hire customer service reps. I hire MBA data scientists to be on my team. So I want to make sure that I have the team of the best and brightest to make sure my students do well. So we're very happy with what we do, and that's why we do it. Diego Santos, when you were searching about, you notice a lot of people say they call for more experience. It's not something that's something you do. Okay. I don't know what to tell you, Diego. Lots of my students get hired as cloud architects. Many of them have never worked in tech in their entire life. Here's the thing. I don't believe in hearsay. I don't believe in things that unemployed people tell other unemployed people. I've been doing the job for a quarter of a century, and I've helped people get these kind of jobs that would be unattainable for over 20 years, and it's never been a problem. Be what the manager wants. Technically competent. I've interviewed thousands of people. I get someone with 30 years experience that knows nothing. I get someone with 6 months experience that's great. Who am I hiring? The person that's great, not the person that's useless that had 30 years experience. Experience means nothing if you're not good at what you do. So the right experience. See, when I teach martial arts, no, actually I don't teach anymore. If I was teaching yoga, perfect practice makes perfect. Practice makes permanent. Sometimes the experienced people are the worst because they've done things wrong for so many years and they don't even know what's wrong anymore. Sometimes it's best for those of us to hire people with openness that aren't sure, and we can train them. But what matters most? Attitude, energy, and enthusiasm. Let's talk about this perception of inexperience for a second. When we interview people, do you know what matters? Do you know what we're talking about? 50% of your interview is related to technical competency. 50% is related to soft skills, emotional intelligence, energy, enthusiasm, attitude. So what's our secret to getting people hired? We put $15,000, $20,000 of soft skills and emotional intelligence training into our courses. Why do we do this? Let's face it. I can get you to 35 or 40 out of 50 on technical competency in 16 weeks to 6 months. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to be better at that. But I can get you to 50 out of 50 on communication skills, emotional intelligence, executive presence, that thing. So your score is an 85 to a 90 out of 100. In the last 5,000 people that I've interviewed, I've hired 10 of them, and they scored over 65. 2 scored 95, and I hired them on the spot. The rest that scored 85 and above were hired within 2 or 3 days of the initial interview. It is that hard to find someone that's that good. So you don't have to be as great technically as you think, but you've got to be likable and loved by the hiring manager that they want to work with you. I've heard plenty of people with no background, and they did great. So Raj's next question, which certification after the professional? I need to know your goal career, Raj, because certifications without knowing your goal career are completely meaningless. Raj, if you tell me you want to be a cloud security architect, I'm going to say you need a CEH or a CISSP or a CCSP, in addition to the certified solution architect professional. If you want to tell me you want to be a big data person, I'm going to make sure you get an Oracle certification plus the certified solution architect professional. If you told me you wanted to be an IAM person and not security, I'd have you spend lots of training with Microsoft and Radius kind of things. It depends on the job you want, Raj, and then we pick a certification portfolio. Your job determines your certification. Not the certifications do not determine your job. You are in charge of your career. We can guide you and help you. And happily, we always help our students find the right certifications. Our certifications are based upon these things held in that video: supply and demand curves, meaning what gets people paid the most, meaning the scarcity of resources, what employers desire the most, what hiring managers desire the most, what the CIOs are reading in CIO magazine, because they're going to be responsible. So that's part of the process, finding the exact best thing that you need. So can't answer that. If you come off mute and you want us to tell you exactly, for example, what your goal is, career, then I can easily and happily will help you, but without knowing that, it's just meaningless. And that's why I produce these videos on how to get the right certifications, because otherwise it's just random shots in the dark. And I don't believe in messing around with people's careers. So if you come off mute and you want to tell me your exact career, I'm happy to answer you. Diego Santos, what do I think about remotely as a cloud architect? I've worked remotely as an architect for 20 years. There's no point in ever going to the office. Why? You're going to go to the customer site, you're going to be sitting at your computer. The only time you'll ever go to the office as a cloud architect, Diego Santos, or need to go to the office is if you don't know when you need to work in a large team. That's a good time to do it. Or there's something called executive briefings that are done. For example, one day they brought in the Secretary of the Navy and I was designed to present them. So I flew to the California office, presented to the Secretary of the Navy and a bunch of admirals with regards to technology and healthcare, for example. That would be an example. Or if you're going to fly the CEO of Goldman Sachs in, you might go to the office and speak to the CEO of Goldman Sachs about how your architecture could improve their business performance. But otherwise, you're going to be working from home, Diego. You're more than welcome, Diego. So Abraham, okay, what an interesting, okay, so what do I mean by a lie? Here's the thing. A lie is simple. If you put Terraform, which is not a cloud architect skill in your resume and you don't know, it's a lie, get rid of it. If it's on there, the employer may ask you about it. If they ask you about it and you don't know, interview's over. If I ask you, what is object storage? And you say S3, and I say, tell me how S3 works. And you start babbling about buckets, and I say, no, tell me how the tech works. And you say, well, it's object storage, which means it's used for objects. And for example, these objects, they go when you put stuff in there and then they move around. I know you're lying to me. Now, if you told me by comparison, object storage is a type of storage area network technology that takes data and breaks it down into objects. What's unique about object storage is that each object has metadata, which is data about the data and the object. And because object storage has metadata or data about data, you can do some amazing things with it. For example, you can query certain parts of the data because it has SQL-like functions because of the metadata. You can also only look at part of a file because you can use the metadata to see which part of the file you need. You can integrate it into a data lake and then use ETL tools to extract it into these big data environments because the metadata enables it to be more data-like function. If you say, look, it's not really hierarchical storage, it's really much like a database with the pointer to the files, it's good. Then if you tell me object storage, for example, is only useful for files that don't change frequently, because every time a file is modified, it creates a new version. And then if you tell me object storage can't be used directly by computers, it needs an intermediary function, like a storage gateway. And then you tell me that object storage is widely used for software distribution and large files that don't change. And the reason you can't change or use files like an operating system is because swap files and other files that change frequently will fill up the RAID array. I believe you know object storage. And every one of my students could do that with 10 times more depth. That's the minimum kind of knowledge. Now here's what the lies will be. And everybody lies. And then we escort them out politely. We say, sorry, you don't have experience. If I ask you how block storage works, and you only know is EBS, and you say how it works is you just plug it in and it's there, luckily. And I said, well, tell me how you plug it in. And you're not sure that it's network storage. So you basically say it's a card. You stick the card in the module and the module fits in and then things light up. This is what 90% of people do. That's a lie. Now that person is trash to me. Now, if they just said, I'm sorry, I've not had the opportunity to work with that technology, but I know this, this, and this, I'm real interested. They stand out as someone honest. Do not lie on an interview. I promise you, it's not going to work out well for you. We know the answers to the questions we actually ask. So let's go to the next question you had. How do you assure you're a team player if you worked on projects? Well, two things. Maybe you play team sports. And if not, when you go on that interview, you tell them. You make it obvious that you're used to working in teams. You show them your emotional intelligence. You show them you're pleasant. You show them you're easygoing. And it's believable. You got to be that, though. Mike, do you mind sharing some technical articles, blogs, resources, and vendor systems? I gave you that when I listed all the things that you guys should study and all the vendors you should go to. I specifically picked vendors like Cisco and Microsoft that will give you a vendor neutral platform that describe the technology in depth. Juniper Networks does it as well. I also recommend, the reading architecture things. TOGAF thing is a perspective of it. Cisco's got design expert training materials. There's lots and lots and lots. Realistically speaking, we've got a program, like I mentioned, that's 250 hours. I gave you the places where you're going to have the engineering technology, but guess what? There's not a lot of training out there on architects other than the Cisco certified design expert work. And that's realistically speaking why we created this program, because there's not a lot out there. You can piece it together by about 10 courses at Global Knowledge for about $40,000, $50,000 plus about the $20,000 of soft skills training we talked about, or you could do something like us, or start with Cisco certified design expert and do the CISSP that'll teach you about security design, which will help you with those kind of things. Then do TOGAF, then do the certified solution architect professional. And that you'll get about 80% of what you need with regards to how to design architectures. And you can do it on your own that way. Either way, I wanted to make sure you know what to do. The next question would be, you started EVE-NG for your networking skills. Great. What difference would it make whether you're live in an environment? EVE-NG isn't a live environment. You're running the exact operating systems that you would actually be running on this on the things. EVE-NG training could count as real life environment, and some people even count EVE-NG as actual testing for production testing. So if you're on EVE-NG, it's going to be pretty similar. EVE-NG is going to be like the cloud. And what do I mean by the cloud? Like the cloud when I say it? You're not going to have to do much work because you're not going to actually have to physically rack and stack them. So it'll be a little easier, but that's about it. As Kay Kunder, going to the Certified Solution Architect October 1st. I think that means you're taking the test, but how to switch when you have application support and monitoring experience. Like I mentioned during this course, if you want to go from any career into this, from application support, first you're going to have to learn the network and the data center. You're going to have to learn all the components of the network and the data center, all the technology that makes the network and the data center possible. Focus on how it works, end-to-end system design. You're going to have to develop extreme business acumen, extreme emotional intelligence, extreme communication skills, extreme presentation skills, etc., etc., etc. Having not technical experience is not a problem. We can do it all the time. I've worked with nurses. I've worked with other healthcare providers. It's no big deal to get them a cloud architect job either. It's just a matter of the right training. So don't let your past hold you back. You can do anything. My first tech job was a senior network engineer, and I was practicing medicine first. No big deal. Working as an information systems director with a nonprofit, but playing more of a solution architect role. Good. You're interested in pivoting, working in this particular area. I don't know what this particular area is. Wondering if your pivot would hurt your chances with potential employees. Well, I don't know what this particular area is. So, Nana, if you want to come off mute or provide some clarification, I am more than happy to answer that. Mr. Boyce asked a question. Mike, you mentioned cloud architects don't build, absolutely, or configure, exactly. However, you said the course covers configuring VMs, file share, running containers and such. Can I throw some light on it? Absolutely. As an architect, you will not be configuring ever, ever. But you do know how to must know how the systems work, for example. And if you don't know how the systems work, it's going to be really impossible to move them. So since most employers actually like infrastructure experience, and that's what they're looking for, we have our students do these infrastructure labs so they can have a list of infrastructure background they have, so they can show the hiring manager they have experience. Otherwise, I wouldn't have anybody configure anything ever, but I've got to show something. So I show the stuff that employers actually care about with regards to infrastructure experience. So the next question is from Anil Sharma. Server access is included for our students, so they don't have anything to buy. They VPN directly in it. All our students need is a notebook computer with a VPN on it. That's it. With the ability to install a VPN, so internet connectivity and on there. My associate Chris had said that Nan had brought up a section that they want to focus on databases. Focusing on databases is great. If you have a database background, Nan. If you don't have a database background, you're going to have to learn databases. So I would start with Oracle to learn databases and get a professional level Oracle certification, the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and then you'll have that. But make sure you learn all about databases, not just relational databases. Learn about NoSQL databases, data warehouses, different types of SQL databases, the benefits that company get with relational databases, such as being able to see the relationships between different things versus the flexibility and schema they get with a NoSQL, plus that scalability, plus these data warehouse environments and how we're going to use them for business intelligence information. Make sure that you can kind of do that. See, the next question comes from Mohammed. How can we make sure within an interview a capable theoretically and also to do the job? Well, that's your interview technique. We spent a lot of time on this. So here's the thing. Mohammed, you're actually on Zoom. Do you want to come off mute?
Yeah, of course.
Hi, Mohammed, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So I'll give you an example if you want, because that is an exceptionally good question you asked.
Yes.
Where are you from? Or where are you right now, I should say?
I'm from Morocco.
You're from Morocco. Okay, that makes totally sense.
Yeah.
Are you there now or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm Morocco. I'm from Morocco right now.
Haven't been there in ages, but I definitely loved it. So let's kind of talk about this. Is there anything that you know really well?
Yes, I'm already certified in AWS and I'm looking to be a cloud architect. So I did some I have some DevOps engineering experience, but I'm looking to be a cloud architect. So yeah.
Okay, so typically speaking, I'm going to show you the difference of proving technical competency versus not proving technical competency. And I was hoping you had experience outside of a career called DevOps. So for example, actually, you know what? Tell me what is Jenkins and Spinnaker and how it works and why organizations use it.
So Jenkins, if you want, for example, to make some CI/CD pipelines for your applications. So for me, I never worked with Jenkins. I worked a lot with Azure DevOps and TeamCity, Octopus Deploy for the deployment. But this particular question, I don't know exactly the difference between them. So those technology that you list right now, I never worked with. I know that Jenkins is for CI and also have some CD, but actually the difference between the other technology, no, I have no idea about this.
Okay, first, shukran. Honest, ethical answer. Totally love that. And that's something that I could work with. So, that I would expect. So for example, if you ask me what is BGP, for example.
Yes.
And I said it's a routing protocol, guess what? You really confident in hiring me?
No.
What if I said BGP is an exterior gateway protocol used to connect to external entities. BGP is a TCP-based protocol that uses TCP port 179. It uses a path vector algorithm that helps determine what is the best path to your traffic based upon certain specific attributes. BGP has two versions. There's an external BGP that you use to connect to external organizations, and there's internal BGP that is used inside of your organizations. The way BGP works is there's a finite state machine. BGP speakers or BGP routers, which is a routing protocol, form a relationship with their neighbors. The first thing they do is send an open message to each other to identify each other. And then after an open message is sent, the finite state machine transitions to something called OpenSend. What OpenSend really means is you basically formed a TCP connection with your neighbor and you send them a welcome message. And I could go on. Would you be confident that I know something about BGP?
Yes, because you give me some extra information about network policies, etc. So I know that you touched those kind of things before. So this answer is absolutely different from the first answers.
So that's how they know if you're competent. So why do I tell my students, look, it's not just enough to know the tech. You have to be able to explain it. Well, first, you're going to be explaining to executives. So executives aren't going to want that depth. They're going to want something totally different. Hey, BGP is a protocol that you use to connect to external entities. It gives you lots of security, flexibility, enhancements. That's what the executive wants. Now, what I gave you is basically what the architect wants. When I speak to network engineers, and trust me, I've trained hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of network engineers. I was on Cisco TV training the engineers at Cisco. I trained all the engineers at Riverstone. I trained thousands of network engineers in my life, literally probably 10,000 of them. So, for example, I have to go deeper with them because they're the ones doing the building. So it's delivering the right message. That's how they're going to know if you're capable.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I understand. Thank you so much.
So, Christopher Bowen's next question. What certificate do you need to take after the professional if you're interested in infrastructure? So Christopher, I'd like to know what kind of infrastructure. Are you interested in infrastructure as it pertains to generic infrastructure, such as servers, such as load balancers, such as containers and networking? Or are you looking to be really great at the network part of this? Because it's a totally different path for you, Christopher Bowen. And I'm happy to help you in either case. Justin, always thrilled while you're in our class and also thrilled to have you here. So thank you so much. Okay, apparently there may be some more questions that are sent to me. Bear with me 1 second. Neil's question, do provide a subscription for lab practice? Our labs are included at no additional cost in our program. Our goal is to basically be the cheapest provider of high quality training in the world. And that's why we basically charge a single day's pay when we could charge 20 times more. We just choose not to. We want to be a solution to help bring people out of poverty into wealth. We want to be a solution to give people new lives. So that's why we do what we do. Raj, what if you're interested in data science? That's great too, Raj. Chris, my chief operating officer, is a data scientist. I will tell you one thing, and I'll ask Chris to chime in here. And if David Lee, another one of my data scientists, is with us, data science jobs are probably the hardest jobs to get in the world, especially if you're not a PhD mathematician. So a lot of data scientists actually learn cloud architecture in order to get cloud architect / data science jobs. So this is a world that I know a lot about, but Chris, would you like to come off mute, and since you're the data scientist on our team?
I can't really talk right now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Apologies. My associate Chris sometimes works in an environment where he can't speak. So in any case, Chris, is that why you'd come to us initially and why David came to us initially? Because it was hard for data scientists to find positions? You can even type it in the chat box.
Yes, it's definitely a very competitive field, but data science or machine learning in the cloud is fine with it.
Thanks, Chris. So like I said, Raj, we work with lots of people for these reasons, coming from the data science world into the cloud, because the cloud gives them many more career options. I think as a data scientist, you need to know how to work on and off the cloud. I don't think the cloud is enough. Just knowing, TensorFlow and Google, you might need to know PyTorch, TensorFlow, all of these libraries. Some things are going to be best in the cloud and some things are going to be best off the cloud. And that's why you're a cloud architect, not just a solution architect. Exactly there. Chris, if there's any specific cert for data science that's actually valuable, you can pop it in the chat box. I don't believe there's any I don't know of any valid data science things that are actually going to help, but Chris may know. So Chris, you can paste that in the box.
Yeah, it's not as structured. Certification form is cloud and networking, yes. So there's no like Cisco or Palo Alto to get certifications from, anything like that. Thanks,
Chris. Want to switch your career from digital engineering to AWS? How do you start? And well, we can help you. If you're not with us, do exactly all the steps that we took. We are the fastest and cheapest approach, but you can take the step. We'd love to work with you and can easily get you there. Or if not, make sure you go to all those sources of information we described. And if you're on Zoom, you can come off mute. If you're on YouTube, feel free to ask subsequent questions. Mo Robel, how to impress a hiring manager without experience? Well, I just did an example with Mohammed. You impressed the hiring manager with your great attitude, your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion. When they ask you how technology works, you wow them by being able to explain it from start to finish, end to end, how all these things work. That's how you impress people, by demonstrating capabilities, by demonstrating it, not by talking about it, by showing. Diego, that's a really great question about the Cloud Architect program. If you subscribe to it, does it have a maximum period? So Diego, here's what we do. We don't take away anyone's access to the content ever. Why do we keep it around? We want to know that you have access to content because there might be certain things you want to refer back to. So we do that, we keep it as long as you want. We let you stay in our group calls for upwards of a year if you need, because sometimes our students get jobs and still need a little bit of extra support. They can stay on the team calls for upwards of a year. We limit our server access to 16 weeks because that's extremely expensive. Now, all the labs can be done in 2 weeks. We give you 16 weeks. If you're a student and you need 2 additional weeks, then, we'll just give them to you. If you say, I need 3 more months of labs, basically say, okay, our cost to run the labs is this. You need 3 months, our cost to run the labs is say $100. That's the cost to run them for an additional 3 months. We just use our cost if people go outside the program. I hope I answered your question there, Diego. So Christopher, how do I know what different areas entails so as to know what to choose after the certification? Like if I choose these things, well, Christopher, and if you're on our program, we work through a series of checklists and a series of questionnaires to help figure out what you like. We look at your background, we look at your goals, and we help you select it. If you're on your own, I guess you could hire us for a 1-hour consulting conversation and we could help you map it out, which, you could do that or you could just take our training, but either case, we could help you map it out that way. But whatever is better, faster, and cheaper for you. But, it's going to take people that are in the industry to help you. I like to tell people when you're actually asking people how to get hired, don't ask people that are not hired yet because they don't know, otherwise they'd be hired. Don't ask people that have just gotten the job because they're not exactly sure why they always got it. To ask people that have either had the position with the title of senior, principal, or distinguished, or a hiring manager. So if you've got access to a hiring manager in that field, you can ask them, or you can work with a career coach like us that's been actually architects forever. Christopher, I hope I answered your question in a way, but if you've got a subsequent question or want deeper more, I am always happy to answer it. Who has questions for me? Chris from my team will link a list of the training along with a coupon on Zoom for me. If people have questions about our training, they can obviously call our office. I'll place our phone number in this window. Who else has the next question? I will say this, for the people on Zoom, if any of you would like a call back, please private message me and I will give you a call back. You can just select my name in Zoom. It is, well, I can't see me, but you could send it either Mike Gibbs or the Go Cloud Team one. And in either case, Michael Gibbs or Go Cloud Team, and we will respond. We'll give you a call back if you desire a phone call. How about the folks on YouTube? Do you have any questions? So I want to make sure we answer everyone's questions. So Raj, if you were part of our class, we'd be doing networking basics and networking things on every single architecture on Mondays and Fridays. There's not a single thing that we do that doesn't involve super high CISSP level security and CCNP level networking. And I work it from the basics again and again. So we do it all at the same time. The way we like to do is, for example, and I learned medicine when I was younger. Part of my day was on assessing patients, listening to the heart, the lungs. Part of it was training on asking the right questions. Part of it was training on pathology, the study of disease. Part of it was training on pharmacology, or the study of drugs. And you know what? Each one of these modules built upon the other modules, which made me better. So that's exactly the way we run our training. Everything we do, people ask, why is your stuff so complicated? Why? Because that way I can put complicated networking and start from the fundamentals, because complexity is just the fundamentals, just mastered. I can add the security and I can add the networking to everything. And that's why my people are all experts in networking and security by the time they're done. Who has the next question there? You have any, Raj, if you've got more questions, feel free to come off mute. You're actually on Zoom. Yes, Raj, I see you're on Zoom. If you want to actually come off and ask more detailed questions, you can always just come off mute and ask. Thrilled to talk to you. Any kind of guidance we can give you, we want to. That's why we do all of these meetings. That's why we do all of these sessions.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. No, I think I've gone through the course content in the sense that, the entire curriculum. It's just that I'm a little worried about the fact that I don't have any experience about networking, but I'm very passionate about tech. So I was just thinking that, should I take some time, a month or 15 days, to go through the basics so that I can catch up with your course and then make the maximum out of these 16 weeks? Because, I want to be, successful after these 16 weeks. That's the expectation I have from myself. So.
And what I'll do is in a minute, I'll ask Alonzo to comment, because I see that he's also on this call. But, I don't limit people to be 16 weeks. So I'd rather teach you networking the right way so you don't build any bad habits on your own. I've been teaching network engineers now for 20 some years. So having said that, I can teach you more probably in an hour than you could in 3 weeks on your own. So I'd rather work with it all at the same time. If you can't finish in 16 weeks, and like if you have no tech background whatsoever, for example, you typically take 6 to 8 months. If you have a tech background and say software, which is totally unrelated to this, then we're typically talking about 16 weeks. Here's the difference. People with the tech background know how to turn on the computer. They know how to install an operating system on the computer. They know what a website is. They know what an IP address is. For people like that, it's 16 weeks. For people that don't have that kind of knowledge, it's 6 to 8 months. So I wouldn't worry about your networking knowledge. Alonzo, are you on the call? I think I saw your name there. Alonzo's been learning networking as he goes along.
Yeah, indeed I have, Mike. For everyone here, initially, let's just do a quick background check. I originally started in marketing, and then I moved on to graphic design, art direction, project management. So there was more of a marketing spectrum piece. And moving forward, I love tech, fell in love with it, love cloud computing, specifically AWS. And I spent a lot of time finally researching and getting and passing the AWS associate exam. But it got to a point where I became stagnant because I didn't know what to do, where to go, how to execute this information, and how it related to physical databases, transferring, lifting and shifting, things of that nature. So I kind of, in essence, got lost in the sauce. So did research, found Mike's program, and what I really believe is that he creates a foundation of understanding the underlying backbone of which cloud is based on. And a lot of, no shade, no disrespect to any other instructors or whatever, but he provides that bit of information that I have not seen anyone else do. And once I got through a certain amount of of the program, which I'm still going through, a lot of the synapses, everything just clicked. And it made a lot more sense. And I wish I grabbed and I knew about Mike's program before I took AWS, because I probably would have had 3 pros by now in all different disciplines of GCP, AWS, and Azure.
Thanks, Alonzo. So actually, Alonzo is an exceptionally good student of mine, as is Ned, that's also on this call. Alonzo is actually so good that we're going to do a free Certified Solution Architect Associate training course. And because I want to make it not just for architects, but also for engineers, he's actually going to be doing the demonstration on our channel to the kind of community that we have. So that's how much faith I have in Alonzo. He's excellent. So thank you, Alonzo.
I really appreciate that, Mike. Thank you.
So now you got to hear from some of my students. So, and Neil Sharma had a question. You're working as an Azure architect, also cleared solution architect, but not sure which career to choose. Okay, so Anil, you're kind of making the decision between AWS versus Azure. We don't make any such distinctions. We teach the cloud. A good cloud architect can work on any cloud, anywhere, anytime, which means the way we train our students is when you meet with that client and they tell you they've got 1,000 servers that all have 128 cores and 4 terabytes of DRAM, you know that you may need, and they're all operating at say 75%, you know that their 1,000 servers are maxed out. So whether you go to Azure to get a VM that's got like an M128S that's got 128 cores and 4 terabytes of DRAM, or you go to AWS and get an X1E.32 XLG, it's just a computer. So we architects, as cloud architects, are not like solution architects. I mean, look, any cloud architect can easily be a junior solution architect or a solution architect, but our world is much bigger. We start with that end customer and basically say, what is your goal? We design the technology that'll solve it. Our technology is in modules. We're never going to be in an environment with just a single cloud. That's dead. The only AWS or only Azure for the most part, that's dead. An organization's probably going to run a Nutanix or an OpenStack cloud in their data center. They're going to connect to an AWS and they're going to connect to a backup cloud too, like Azure, or they'll connect to Azure and back up to AWS, or they'll use GCP because of its machine learning. They'll use AWS for its infrastructure and they'll use Azure as a backup. No concept of a single cloud. So it's not which cloud, it's learn the cloud and then know how to work on any cloud. So Christopher, all my people can work on a moment's notice. They can switch from the Oracle cloud, the AWS cloud, the GCP cloud, the Azure cloud. They can sign on any cloud, anywhere, anytime. So Satosh Haramath, you're working as an application architect. Good. Does a cloud architecture source help you? It will give you 10% of what you need. Like if you pass the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, it's 10% of what you need. The other 90% is the network and the data center and how all those functions work. So that's the other 40% that gets you to 50% technology. Going from an application architect world to an actual cloud or network architect world is going to take tremendous business acumen, emotional intelligence training, presentations training, executive communication plus executive presence, that kind of gravitas function. That's realistically speaking what you're going to need to know. Plus, you're going to need to know how to communicate to the CEO versus the CFO versus the CIO versus the CTO, what they care about. You're going to have to deal with the analytical versus functional versus intuitive personality type, plus the digital auditory kinesthetic. These are the critical architect skills. So it's not the certification piece. Here's what a certification piece is, and only this. Yes, I took a certification, so I have it on my resume. Hey, interview me, I have a certification. Nobody doesn't hire you because you don't have a certification. I'm going to tell you this. The best cloud architects I know with the most senior and distinguished positions have 0 cloud certifications whatsoever. And I know people working at Google, Azure, and AWS, hundreds of them. And guess what? None of them had any certification other than a CCIE. Why are the CCIEs so in demand? Because the cloud is a network and a data center. So network and data center is the tech piece, but make sure you've got that communications piece. Why are so many of these CCIEs doing so well? Because we CCIEs often functioned as architects and not engineers. So we've got that customer facing, that emotional intelligence, je ne sais quoi / executive presence. That's what's needed for the job. Most important critical skills to be an architect. Outside of tech is the non-tech piece. So that's what you got to do to get you there. Earl Harrison's got a good question. Is managed services any good? Well, Earl, you're gonna have to tell me what you mean by managed services. If you're returning to cloud native solutions, there's strengths and weaknesses in these approaches. 90% of all people will not use managed services. 90% will not. Here is the benefit and the weakness of managed services. The benefit of managed services, you just don't have to think about it. It's often a little bit cheaper to run and operate. It grows and shrinks on demand. Beautiful. Here's the downside of managed services. You have no control, literally zero control. So you have no control. If the provider raises your rate, you are stuck. You can't do anything about it. If the provider doesn't like your business mission and kicks you out, you're out of business. And it's already happened to people using these managed services. So managed services like serverless have advantages. Maybe they're better, faster, and cheaper, but they have massive downsides, such as loss of flexibility, ability to be driven out of business by your cloud provider if they don't like your business. It's happened before, or things like that. So what do I recommend? Case by case basis. What is the customer's industry? Is it a controversial industry? You know, what is the cost to refocus the applications? How long? There are organizations that are going to, in order to go from a non-managed service, like an EC2 instance, to a managed service like serverless, might spend 500 million or might have to spend, you know, $50 million to do it. And for them, it may not make sense. So it's a case by case basis. I think there are certain managed services like S3, which are really great and simple to get your data on and off of. There's managed services like Keyspace, which is a managed Cassandra service for NoSQL databases, which is different than DynamoDB, which is an excellent NoSQL database, but you got to refactor your applications for it. So it's depending upon what kind of things you're trying to do, what your goals are, your scalability desires, your cost factors, and your risk tolerance and your industry. So Earl Harrison, I hope I answered your question on managed services. Well, I hate being asked this question, Arpit, because I don't like to give news that's negative. I'm going to tell you with the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, unless you are a CCIE expert, chances are there's no jobs that you could potentially get anywhere with just the Certified Solution Architect Associate. Minimum level, intro level for a fresher job in today's world is the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. I wouldn't even waste my time trying to apply, because what's going to happen is you apply for a few of these things, you go on these interviews. If you're not prepared for these interviews, what's going to happen is they'll interview you, they'll tell you you don't have experience. Now, mind you, this is really important to understand. We hiring managers have no time, zero time. We don't bring in anybody for an interview that we don't think we can hire. We tell people, sorry, you don't have experience, when they can't pass the interview. It's much easier to say, by the way, sorry, you don't have experience, then you're terrible. So as hiring managers, we don't like to leave a bad taste in somebody's mouth because it could damage our brand. So if you go on an interview and someone says you don't have enough experience, it's because you're not ready. So I'm going to tell you this. I've interviewed 1,000 people that had passed the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, and I'd say 300 of them had passed the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. Of those 1,000 people that I interviewed, none were hireable. That's why I made this training program, not a single one. Now, most of these people had taken a training program from one of the providers in a continent in the South Pacific, where they were experts at configuring the things. They knew all the names of the services and how to configure it, but none knew architecture. So those courses were great for junior cloud engineers, fantastic, but not architects. So if you want to do this and you want to apply for jobs, learn the network, learn the data center, pass that certified solution architect professional, and go study your speeches, study your presentations, build your interview skills, learn salary negotiation, learn business negotiation. The work of the Harvard Negotiation Project is excellent. We use some of that along with Chris Voss's work, plus my years of experience. That's how you transition from being able to go from what looks like a fresher to being an expert that you go on your first interview and you get hired. I've taken lots of 22-year-olds and have given them incredible jobs, but that's the process. Who else has the next question? Mohammed, every cloud architect should really know all about the cloud. Every one of them. Here's why. And they should all know about private clouds, because you're going to be working with them everywhere. You're going to be working as a cloud architect with the Nutanix cloud. You're going to be working as a cloud architect with the OpenStack Ansible cloud. American Airlines uses the IBM cloud, which is the OpenStack Ansible cloud. Everybody uses these, and they're growing by the day because this gives organizations auto scaling. This enables the organizations to connect to 3 clouds at the same time and provision it all from a single environment. As a cloud architect, yeah, you really need to know the Nutanix cloud and the OpenStack Ansible cloud. I would suggest more of the OpenStack Ansible cloud. I love the Nutanix cloud. I almost took a leadership position with Nutanix about 2 years ago. I think it's that great. Having said all of this, my recommendation is learn that OpenStack Ansible cloud like the back of your hand. All of our students do. Jill Shaw, okay, this Dell powered server with two E5 2680, 16 cores. Okay, the only problem with that is it doesn't have enough DRAM. So that server, Jill Shaw that you put there, you need to upgrade the DRAM to at least 128 gigs for these kind of applications, and then you'll have a good server for practice. You need a lot of DRAM for these products because each machine is going to need its own RAM. And when you run a cloud, you want to give your cloud like 32 or 64 gigs of RAM. You're like 32 gigs of RAM for your cloud. You want to give your what do you call it, your Active Directory things, at least 8 gigs of RAM. You're probably going to want to have, a half a dozen machines that are going to connect to your cloud that you're going to want to design, and each one of them is probably going to need 4 to 8 gigs of RAM. So minimum of 128 gigs of RAM. And the 4 times 500 gigs might not be fast enough unless they're SSD drives. And if they are, you can put them in RAID 0. It'll almost give you what you need. Just don't store any important data there. Hope I answered your question there, Jill Shaw. Any other questions for me? Because I'm happy to do anything I can to help you all in your careers. In any way I can. Okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to drop a link to our training program along with a coupon code in Zoom. When I see Cloud J has asked a question. Okay, 2 interesting things. So, Cloud J, can I talk a little bit more about the labs that I have for my students? Sure. We have our students literally VPN into our data center. And in our data center, our students build every piece of technology that makes cloud computing possible. And then my students actually build this cloud from scratch. I do this for the following reasons. I want you to know the network and the data center like the back of your hand. Because guess what you're going to be doing as a cloud architect? Taking stuff from the network and the data center to move it to the cloud, which is just another network in the data center. So we have you do the following. First thing we do is have you work with VMware ESXi. Why? Because it's the main virtualization platform in the world. And guess what? It's there. So next, containers. We have you build containers because containers and virtual machines are all the computing on the cloud. After that, almost all infrastructure is Linux. Windows, basically, you can think of Microsoft, and look, I love Windows. It's got a lot. If you really think about the platform, and I've been using the Mac for decades because it's more reliable, but why is the Mac more reliable, except for mine? Because Apple uses basically, they own the hardware and they own the software, so they can literally only make drivers for a combination of like 30 different computers. Where Windows, the fact that it works as good as it does with millions and millions of hardware and software capabilities, it's incredible. But there's no servers that are running Windows for the most part, except for Exchange and Active Directory. Why? Linux is free. Microsoft's expensive. So you've got to know Linux. So after we do the server virtualization and the containers, we build out LAMP stack because we want your Linux skills to get good. But the Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP is the basis of all web apps. So we have you do it. We have you build NFS because you know what? You need to understand file sharing. And guess what? If you're going to work with EFS or any of these other things, you need to know how it works as an architect, not how to configure it, how it works. So we make sure you learn it from the scratch. Server message block, sandbox shares. You're going to be using this everywhere. So we make you build it to learn how it works. And then after that, that's the whole reason. You will be using firewalls everywhere. So because of this, we'll have you work with firewalls. You're going to be using VPN concentrators. So we're going to have you work with VPN concentrators by building them. You're going to have to know IAM. So we're going to have you build Microsoft Active Directory because that's what everybody uses for IAM today. And we're going to have you build the cloud. So you learn the cloud. So you can be a competent and capable cloud architect. So we have you guys do that. These are real labs. These are real experiences. You put this on your resume and hiring managers are going to know you know what the heck you're doing and you have real experience. So if there's a resume keyword scanner that's being used, you're going to pass it. If you get asked questions on how stuff works, you're going to know. So all of this is to make sure that we build the perfect interview, that you have the perfect skills to do that job so you can get hired, paid more, hired sooner, and actually be able to do the job. There was somebody that came to me, they wanted to be my student. They had just given credit to an organization and said, I want to hire you to make sure that I don't get fired from the job. I said, then why did you write a recommendation for the company that you just went through their class when you told me that the reason you came to me is to get hired? And he says to me, he says, well, I thought it was the right thing to do. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but you didn't make you hireable. They didn't make you workable. So learn how to do the job, be great at the job, and you'll be hired every single time. So we work hard to not only make sure that you know the job, but you know how to do that job. Because there's no point in getting hired if you get fired on the first day. So that's why we work so hard on these things. Messafan, I did see your enrollment last night coming through. There were a bunch that came through, and I thought it was a really cool name. So I saw that. Super excited to be working with you. Normally I get too many emails to actually see them, but I saw one come in last night and it had such an interesting name, which I thought was cool, that I was excited to see it. So thank you. I should also ask if you're enjoying the content, if you can please leave a like or a comment. It's good for the algorithms. Who else has a question for me? Oh, Jill Shaw has a question. How is AWS and the healthcare field? Well, I'll tell you this. Jill Shaw, I'm a healthcare professional. I'm a nurse practitioner. Practiced internal medicine for a long period of time and loved every last minute of it. So, how is AWS? I'm not going to say AWS. I'm not going to say Azure. I'm not going to say GCP because it's not which cloud is used. It's all clouds are used. So, how is healthcare with the cloud? It's emerging. At some point, I see a lot of stuff going to the cloud. The cloud is cheaper. Now, when we're dealing with healthcare architectures, we have to remember, if we stick our servers on the cloud, what happens if we lose our connections to the cloud? What is our survivability of the cloud? So when you're dealing with organizations like healthcare, you're probably in most cases going to want to be setting up a hybrid cloud in the data center and a cloud externally, where the data center can hold up if anything broken were to happen in the cloud. So that's a combination. If you can't have an environment like a hospital where if they lose all their network connectivity, people die. So probably best architectures for them are split amongst multiple clouds with multiple connections or a hybrid data center plus cloud. But definitely lots of stuff going on in healthcare, and I strongly encourage it. I've spent lots and lots of time as the lead architect for healthcare in all of Cisco. So that's a world I know. So if you want to actually know any kind of healthcare architecture question, feel free to ask. One of the benefits of being able to practice medicine before you were an architect is you get put on a lot of healthcare things. Oops, didn't mean to mix that. Sorry. Who else has a question? We're going to be doing some, okay, Ebram, you would like to be a data architect. So what should your path be? High-level perspective health, you like dealing with big data, ETLs, gathering insights. You're confused as to where to go. Well, the question I have for you is, are you talking big data architect or are you talking about data scientist? Because these are extremely different things. So I want to be really clear. Big data architect is designing the system. Data scientist is, determining how to obtain the information, what to do with the information, how to massage, process, and then make recommendations for decisions. So if you can let me know exactly what you mean there. The term architect gets thrown around in a lot of different ways. Abraham. So I'll wait for you to tell me that before I kind of try and help you. Okay. While I'm waiting for Abraham's follow-up information so I can answer his question correctly, does anybody else have any questions? Maybe people on Zoom where there's no delay. Eric Torres. Hi, Mike, fellow student here. Wonderful. What regions do you finding the most work needed? Developing countries? It's a great question. And Raj, we have to tell me what you mean by big data architect as well, and then I'm happy to answer your question. So, Eric, what regions do I find the most work? Everywhere. In the US, basically everything's moved, well, right now I'd say 15 to 20% is actually on the cloud, and we're migrating to the cloud. In the developing nations where I do a lot of work, and I love working in the developing nations. I do so much work in India and Africa. I work with some of the most amazing people. I do lots of work with other developing nations as well. And let me tell you, so much work to be done there, but it's different work. So the work in the US, the work in the UK, the work in Canada, the work in Australia is pretty much basically lifting, shifting the stuff in the data center and moving it to the cloud. The stuff that we're doing in the developing world is in some cases just brand new, go straight to the cloud. And that's pretty awesome. So different projects, but there's work all over the world. I hope I answered your question there, Eric. So Raj and Abraham all pretty much asking the same thing. First, I'm going to make this abundantly clear to you. You can't be good at two different careers. You can be a great data scientist or you can be a great data architect. You can't do both. You can't be a great doctor and a great auto mechanic at the same time. Because the careers are so different. You know, why do I say this? You know how long it takes to get good at BGP? No, I really want you to know. After you're a CCI like me, I spent 10,000 hours on BGP before I even understood BGP. 10,000 hours, that's 5 years full time before I was even competent or an expert. I then spent years more working on BGP. And guess what? Now, 25 years later of working on three things, BGP, multicast, and cloud, I'm great at BGP. It took a lifetime. You want to be a great data scientist? It's a lifetime. You want to be a great big data architect? It's a lifetime of practice. That's why, you know, the human doctors generally don't work on cats, dogs, and birds. And that's why veterinary people generally don't work on do surgery on people because they're different worlds. So to be a data architect, you have to understand architecture. So to be a big data architect, first you have to be a cloud architect. Then you must be an expert on all kinds of databases. No SQL databases, relational databases, data warehouse. Then you must become an expert on data lakes. Then you must become an expert on ETL tools. Then you must become an expert on integration techniques. And guess what? As an architect, you need to understand the machine learning and all these other things that can be used and how the data can be visualized. That's the job of the big data architect. Now, the data scientist, and Chris can come in if I'm saying something that's wrong, but I know this enough about this career to at least give you information, and Chris will keep me from doing anything stupid. It's more about how you get the information and what you do with the data so you can make those recommendations. So in one place, you're the specialist that's looking at the data and aggregating and doing it. And in another place, you're actually designing the systems to make them work. Very, very, very different careers. So if you're talking about a big data architect, that's what to do. Everything we talked about how to become a cloud architect, you still have to do, but then you have to learn the big data environments like I just described. Becoming a data scientist is a totally different career. Generally speaking, you need a PhD in mathematics first to even be considered for most people. And after that PhD in mathematics and all those fancy statistics and calculus and all these other things, then there's a tremendous amount of coding that you have to do. You're going to be writing Python scripts. There's work with TensorFlow, PyTorch, and 1,000,001 other libraries. Completely not related to architecture. So I hope I answered both of your questions, and that's to give you the feedback for what to do. And Chris went to, I think, like a 4-month, $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 data science boot camp. So he's very capable of these things. But you know, these are the things you kind of need to understand. Gopal, love to see you on the Saturday workshop. On Saturday, we're gonna have fun. We're going to be configuring some routers and switches. We're going to do some BGP, some LSPF. We're going to be manipulating paths real time. You'll be able to see it on the routers and the routing tables. Strongly recommend everyone come. I make my students do these things because it gives them more time. And guess what? If you're not our students, please do this. Although I got to say, our students get some pretty incredible experiences that no one else in the world gets. Who else has the next question? And Abraham, I hope I answered your question why you can pretty much only do one of these very well. So you're going to have to make a decision where you want to be. I'll tell you one thing, Abraham, you'll earn a lot more as a data architect than you will as a data scientist. I'm going to tell you, you're going to have a lot more job options. I can definitely tell you that. But you got to do what makes you happy. Don't ever take a job for pay. Take a job for love and passion. You're going to be doing it a long time. A data architect is a big data architect, Abraham. It's just another term that people are throwing around for data architect, big data architect, same thing. Little tiny businesses don't do data architecture work. They don't have a need. The people that are investing in these big data architectures are big, large global businesses. David, all I can say is, my students have done it. I've done it. I've got lots of people all over the place that have done it. I don't know what to tell you otherwise. Last week, Ian just went to Bearing Point doing it, and Ian had no cloud background whatsoever. I won't even tell you some of the weaknesses of some of my other students that are working. I had a Richard Ofukar that's now working at AWS, and I had him for 3 weeks as a student, and he just graduated school, and he was an incredibly amazing guy. Amika, one of my students, recently got a cloud engineer, cloud architect job. I can't remember. Julius never worked as a cloud architect or cloud engineer in his life, and he's now a senior cloud architect at IBM. My student Surajit recently took a senior cloud architect job with IBM and never worked as a cloud architect at all, just had application background. So we do it all the time. So it's all an issue of knowing the job and making sure you're competent, capable, and have the communication skills. So that's all I have to say. Been doing this forever. Mohammed, soft skills are the most important thing. And I strongly recommend you focus on this. We teach it as part of every training session we do. If you are not with us, here's what I recommend. Goldman and Boyatis, they typically have a course that's approximately $5,000, but they will teach you emotional intelligence, and it's important. I recommend Speakeasy. For example, they'll do an intro to communication skills course. It's about $3,000. You need like 2 or 3 of them. I recommend it. My students get it completely. Join Toastmasters. It's free. And start speaking and presenting as often as you can in front of a group of audience. Start writing as much as you can. Go to a bar, for example, and I don't really drink alcohol, but go to a bar and strike up a conversation with someone that you've never met before. The next time you're on a plane, start talking to someone. Try and make the person, the next time you see someone that's sad, try to make them happy. Take your family members and listen to them, truly, authentically listen. Help a friend solve a problem. Follow some people in a country club. Watch what they do. Yes, it's going to be expensive to go there because you need somebody to teach you how the people in this world look. Look, these soft skills, business communications, business acumen, I hate saying it, these are skills of the rich and the elite. And if you're not speaking the same language, you look like an outsider. So that's why I'm trying to show you what part of our world, the part of the world that's doing these billion-dollar designs, you've got to speak like a certain way. So we teach it all in a low cost, but if you're not with us, get the training. It's absolutely needing. So I hope I gave you an answer there, Mohammed. Just please focus on this. David, one thing I will definitely tell you, getting a CCNP will be a huge help. Huge help. All my students get tremendous networking training. It's funny because my students get 80% of a CCNP I mean, a CCNA in our training, minus, some of the silly switching kind of components. We do more BGP than the CCNP. We take our students to CCI level BGP knowledge. And that's kind of our formula, is every one of our students has to have that. You must have that knowledge of the network and the data center and how all this stuff works. Abraham, you can either be a data scientist, you can be a data architect, big data architect, same thing. Do what you absolutely love. I'm going to tell you, it's probably going to be 1,000 times easier to become a data architect than it actually is to become a data scientist. It's probably going to cost you a lot less. The data scientists on my team, literally speaking, realistic, spent 30,000 plus just to do a boot camp to even understand data science. And then after that, that did not include the communication skills that needs to be done. That did not include a lot of the other things to help build the career, the interviewing background. And that's why people are coming to me as data scientists to get hired. So data science, I love it. I think it's an unbelievable career. Just, that's a doer. Architects like us are designers and communicators. So pick the one you like. It's not just I want you to know, Abraham, it's not just making flowcharts. It's writing documents, it's making architectural designs, it's explaining the design, it's working with the people that use it to make sure the design is good for them. Design is an end-to-end issue. It requires so much communication to get the information, elicitation of information. It's not just drawing a picture, but we spend a lot of time drawing pictures, at least earlier in our careers. And then when we're older in our careers, you know what we do? We draw pictures on a napkin and we send it to a graphics designer and they make it look perfect for us. Anybody else have any questions for me? Because we're happy to keep going if you guys have questions. We just want to help you guys build the best careers. Crimson, will DevOps as a field last long in the industry? I have a lot of respect for DevOps professionals. Again, it's the exact opposite of architecture. So studying DevOps will not help you as a cloud architect, like being a cloud architect will not help you in DevOps. Having said that, if you like sitting behind a computer and you don't like getting involved with the customer and you are an exceptionally good programmer, then DevOps engineering is a good field for you. But to be a DevOps professional, it's not just passing a AWS DevOps professional certification. That's nothing. It's knowing DevOps tools, it's knowing software development, and then doing all these DevOps automation. And I think DevOps is really great. I think DevOps is such a good engineering career that Sandeep Das, me, and my friend Sujit Bara are actually putting together a DevOps program. And the program will be how to get your first DevOps job. And it's going to be me, because I've got 20 years of experience, getting people hired, doing the how to get hired piece. It'll be Sujit and Sandeep that are actually doing the DevOps piece. I am not like one of the course providers that never worked in networking is going to make a networking course. We only make courses for which we have 25 to 50 or 75 years experience as our team. So we're coming up with how to get your first DevOps job with Sujit, that's been in the industry for 30 years, and Sandeep, that's got about 10 years experience, and me, that's got 20 years of getting people hired. So that's how much I think of DevOps. But understand, DevOps is going to pay half of architecture roles, and DevOps is going to have less career potential. But if you like to code and you like to be behind the computer and you do not like being customer facing, DevOps may be one of your best careers. So I hope I answered your question there. Hi, Arun. Christopher Bowen, do you need a BS degree in computer engineering or science? No, I have no degrees in tech whatsoever. My first master's degree is in nursing as a nurse practitioner. My second master's degree is an MBA. Guess what? I've got lots of students that don't even have degrees and they find jobs. What matters is as follows. You must be technically competent beyond reproach. If you don't have a degree, you're going to have to work harder, meaning you're going to have to even be more competent. You're going to have to be more emotionally intelligent. You're going to have to be so likable that the world has to have you, but totally feasible to do it. It's also easier for me to get a 40-year-old a job than a 20-year-old. Why? Because at 40 years old, people are going to assume you have some wisdom. And when you're meeting with that CEO who's also 50 or 60, they see a few gray hairs, they tend to like it. guess what? I work with some really youthful people too. So you know what, with the youthful people, we leverage their expertise. What are young people really good at? They learn fast and they're super energetic. So we tune their portfolio and their interviews to basically highlight that what they lack in experience, they make up in attitude, energy, enthusiasm, and passion. And they show them a degree of technical competency that makes them look like the 14-year-old that hacked the White House. That's what we have to do to get people hired. So thank you for Arun. Arun is also one of my students. And he's got some nice things to say about, our classes. Mohammed, will DevOps knowledge help you switch to be a cloud architect? No. Here's what I'll say. If you've got a DevOps background, it's kind of a great thing but here's what architects need to know about DevOps. What is DevOps? What do DevOps engineers do? And a little familiarity of the process. But that's it. I mean, literally, that's it. Knowledge of the network and the data center, highly useful. Knowledge of software, not really, not if you're designing end-to-end systems, which are basically network and data center. Software is not really a big piece of it, but knowing about DevOps is great. What it is, how it works. And that's why, again, I routinely have my friend Sandeep Daz on my channel. I go to his channel and I talk about what architecture is for the DevOps people that want to transition out. He comes to my channel so that cloud architects at least know what DevOps is. And also so people know how different DevOps is than architecture. We have to do this because, there's some certification providers that want to sell courses so badly. They'll literally convince people that they need to study SysOps, which is maintenance, and DevOps, which is a totally different career, just to take a certified solution architect professional exam, which is the craziest advice we've ever heard. Not only is it crazy, if it takes somebody 9 months to learn all these unrelated careers, and they learn, and an average cloud architect, meaning average, not even great, earns $12,000 a month. If it takes somebody 9 months, it's over $100,000 of lost money by doing that path. So the shortest distance between two paths is a straight line. Find what you love, become great at it, and go get the job you desire, and you'll have the best career ever. Crimson TD, I have freshers on my team that I've hired with never had a job in their entire lives. But experience is always helpful. But when you're a fresher, you got to get it somewhere soon. I've been working with freshers forever. It's harder than older, more experienced people because of the age. Meaning, if you're 25, it's assumed that you've got less experience, less knowledge, less wisdom, less business acumen, communication than if you're 65, than if you're 55. So you've got to go through that if you're young. But if you're young and you can prove competency and knowledge and experience and excellence, then you'll be hired every time and you will be paid more than you can imagine, even as a young person. That's the key. You've got to be great. When you do not meet the field, this is why we're so critical on soft skills, emotional intelligence. Because I'm going to have two people. As a new person, you can't quite be as technically competent as somebody that's got 20 years experience. So we have to make you so likable that you are loved and they just have to hire you. So that's why we have to make you so good that the world doesn't know. And yet Joshua Calhoun, even though we have certification training programs, we are not going to tell people to waste their time on a million certifications. There are certain certifications we love. There are certain ones. We love the CCIE. We love the CISSP. We love the CEH. We love the Certified Solution Architect Professional, the Google Professional Cloud Architect, the CCSP. They matter. There's a few others we like. Why do we pick the big ones? We pick the ones that are going to get you hired and get you paid more. If you have 4 associate certifications, and here's what hiring managers think of associate certifications. Not me, they're hard. Hiring managers think of an associate person as like you went to first grade and you don't know enough to really do the job, but at least you have an intro to intro. That's what a hiring manager sees with that. So if you have 4 intro certifications, people are like, wow, this person went to first grade or kindergarten 4 times. That's great. But I need someone that went to college. So we're not going to try and convince you to buy or waste your time with a bunch of certifications that aren't going to matter. Get something medium and then go straight. If you got a well, okay, so here's the thing. If you're a DevOps engineer and you're not focusing on your soft skills, your communication skills, your emotional intelligence, executive presence, those kind of things, they're going to see you as the hands-on computer engineer. You're going to be the guy that's still behind their computer all day. They're going to see this, this, and this. and they will recommend scripting, they'll recommend sysops, DevOps. You got to let your hiring manager know what your goals are. For example, when I've got someone that if they put a sysops thing and a DevOps associate on their certification and they want to go interview for an architect job, they're not going to get an architect job. They're going to get pummeled with sysops, which is maintenance questions, and DevOps maintenance questions. I don't even want this stuff on your resume. I want your resume to show exactly what you're like. I mean, let's face it. If you think a good resume for me would be internal medicine, physical medicine, and rehab, senior network architect, security architect, cloud architect, it's going to look like an idiot. Now, I've done all these things in my careers. I practiced medicine first, but I don't have medicine listed on my resume unless I'm applying for a healthcare architecture position. I just have my architecture work done. So the second I put medical things on there, people are going to be like, who are you? Now, if I was going to be the lead architect for Cisco in healthcare, I'd put it on there, as I did, because I was the lead architect for Cisco healthcare, the healthcare industry for Cisco. But I put it on there then. But when I joined Cisco initially, I didn't tell them that I used to practice medicine when I joined an engineering team. It wasn't relevant. So if an architect puts sysops certifications on their resume, the hiring manager is going to be like, I guess I'll send you to the maintenance team. So make your resume shine. Focused, 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 focused. Don't make your career like you just threw a bunch of darts in the air and waited for them to land. Look at it, make it clear to the hiring manager. You're passionate about what you love. You're focused at being great. You are the solution to the hiring manager's problem, and your capabilities are so strong that they can't live without you. That is what you need to do in these interviews. Deliver that message, and then none of it matters. Yeah, thank you, Arum. Actually, we do a lot of work on scaling things like databases. We actually probably, like Aran said, we cover database architectures and scaling probably better than some of the database architects work with, because we understand the data center. See, we look at it from the data center. See, a lot of these application people, you give them the systems, you set up the systems, and they know how to code them. But for you, the architect, it's going to be a little different. You're going to have to be able to build and design these systems, so you're going to have to know how they work. Actually, Cloud J basically said the most important thing. Here's why I no longer recommend associate certifications anymore, other than as a stepping stone to the real deal. 20 years ago, you could take a Cisco certified network associate job and get a job. Now, what changed? 20 years ago, when you took a Cisco certified network associate, you had the choice of the $5,000 training course that you had, or you had the opportunity to buy the Cisco press materials. And that was it. $5,000 training program for the week or this. And those training programs were good. When someone had to put together, somebody was paying $5,000 back in 1996 for a CCNA course, people cared. They gave you content and you learned something. Now, here's what's changed, for better or for worse. Udemy made it around. The internet made it possible for anybody to basically produce any content. Look at the people that are producing these big certification courses. Look at their resume. There's one guy right now that's producing a network training course that's never worked in networking every day. And every day he makes a post on LinkedIn about his new networking things, how he can teach you networking. Each post makes it clear to me he doesn't know networking. But I'm not going to say anything to this person. It's not appropriate. Do what he needs. So that enabled people to basically have no background, to basically start developing courses. And these courses are so good at getting you to pass the exam. They teach the exam like nothing else I've ever seen. And then they follow it up with practice exams that are basically the real exam. So between exam dumps and teaching you the test courses, anybody can pass one of these exams basically overnight. I had a friend that wanted to say, like, Mike, how long do you think it'll take me to pass 6 AWS exams? I said, with what kind of training preparation? And he told me, I said, 3 weeks. And he said, 3 weeks? I said, 2 weeks if you study hard, 3 weeks to do it. A week and a half later, he had 6 certifications. He said, I bought copies of the exam. I did the silly Udemy courses. I don't know what any of these things are, but I am certified. I'm like, congratulations. So would you like me to teach it now? And then I taught him and he worked. But the point is certifications will help you get an interview, but nobody doesn't get hired because they lack certifications. I don't care what certifications you have. It's irrelevant to me as a hiring manager. Can you do the job? Can I trust you? This is what hiring managers care about. Do you know your limitations? Are you energetic, enthusiastic? Do you raise the energy of the room? Are you a toxic person? Can you work in a team? Will you bring out the best in others? This is what I hire for. This is what every hiring manager, I've asked thousands and thousands in my career. That's what they care about. So, I could get all of you 12x AWS certified in 3 weeks. I could just teach you the exams all day long. It would be simple, nothing, but you wouldn't be able to work. So I focus on work and outcomes, not just certifications. Abraham, great question. What are some of the differences between a cloud architect and a cloud data architect? Cloud architects focus on designing the end-to-end solutions. Cloud data architects focus on only designing data solutions inside of the cloud. Nothing else. You have to know how the rest of the stuff works. But a cloud network architect like me, I could literally do nothing other than VPC networking design for the rest of my life and not even look at the rest of the cloud. And if I was actually choosing to work as a cloud network architect instead of doing a little consulting while I run this, I wouldn't even think about a database. It wouldn't be part of my discussion. I wouldn't be thinking about Linux. It wouldn't be part of my discussion. I wouldn't be thinking about servers. It wouldn't be part of my discussion. I wouldn't even be thinking about firewalls and load balancers. All I would be thinking about, literally speaking, is the BGP routing that we'd be doing, maybe optimizing some SDN, maybe optimizing the routing, maybe doing some weird splitting my organization into multiple VPCs and doing some cool networking. That's all I would ever do as a cloud network architect. I wouldn't even think about anything else. So I hope I answered your question. And actually, Arun took the hardest of the cloud certification exams, which is the professional cloud architect. He did it within 8 weeks from us, and he didn't have a network background or a cloud background at all. So it was pretty easy for him. I'm going to tell you, if you know the cloud, how easy these certifications are. I took the Google Professional Cloud Architect legitimately, meaning no questions, no exam downs, nothing. I bought the Cybex book on a Friday. I scheduled the exam on a Monday. I read the book on Saturday and Sunday, and I passed it on Monday. Now, I never worked in the Google Cloud before. I had worked on the Azure Cloud, and I had worked on the AWS Cloud. So I knew the cloud, and I knew the network, and I knew this answer. It took me 2 days to read that book and pass the exam. Now, if I didn't know the cloud, it would have taken me a year for that Google Professional Cloud Architect, because that's a real exam. That exam, they give you case studies. And they ask you, the company's got this running. They're using this for this, this for this, this for this. How do you do this? It was a great exam, but these aren't that challenging. Abram, Samir, next question. Cloud architects work as part of an architecture team to design an end-to-end solution. You got it. You figured it out, Abraham. This is not a one-size-fits-all cloud architect. It's a team. You're going to have a cloud network architect like me. Then you're going to have a cloud security architect. I could take that role too, because I've done it in the past. You may have a generic cloud architect that's doing some overall stuff. You're going to have some cloud big data people that are on your team. You're going to have some IAM people on your team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the bigger the projects, the more people. You could be part of a 50-person architecture team. I've literally worked on architectures where I had to bring in an army of people that are 20 and 30 people strong that literally had to be on site for 6 months just to get the requirements. This is kind of normal. So I want you to really understand where we're actually coming from. That's why all this stuff matters. And that's why we're doing it. So yes, you can't be great at everything. Don't even try. Why does it take 17 years for entry-level practice for certain physicians to even begin? And they only focus on 1/10 of the heart after 17 years, and the heart's the size of my fist, because that's how much time it takes to be great. So don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. That will guarantee you a low salary. That will guarantee you low career opportunities. Become really, really great. Become so good. Become so well-liked. Become so communicative, and have such technical depth. When you walk on an interview, they can't let you leave without hiring you. I've interviewed for 5 companies. 2 hired me on the spot. Cisco was the slowest. It took them 2 days to hire me. Meaning I interviewed one afternoon and they said, can you meet us for a breakfast meeting? Can you then interview with the VP? And can you present to our team? And guess what? As an architect, for a good job, you're going to be delivering a presentation as part of the interview process. First, you'll have a behavioral one. Can they tolerate you? Then you'll have a technical one, then maybe a few behavioral ones. And then guess what? You're going to have to present in a lot of cases because they want to see if you can present. Because it doesn't matter how good you are. If you can't present, you can't be an architect. The architects are no jack of all trades. Jack of all trades is the kiss of death for your career. Here's the thing. You can be a CCNP, CCIE, generic networking guy that knows a little bit of everything and earn $100,000 a year. Or you can be a BGP expert and earn $400,000 a year as a CCIE. You choose what you want to do. I'm a BGP expert and I'm a multicast expert. These are where I've spent my time. So figure out exactly what you love and be better at it than anyone else. That's the way you build your career. Build your brand. You've got a Quality Architect brand. That's where we do some branding work with our students. Make you so irresistible that the world cannot not have you, and you'll always be hired. Mohammed, what a nice question here. As a cloud architect, how do you express your results or work with a company? Well, Mohammed, excellent question. As a cloud architect, you will be constantly presenting to the customer. So you'll be exchanging your information there. You'll be doing reports as often as you can. There'll be lots of reports. There'll be beautiful documents that you're writing, but you're going to be presenting, and you're going to be in lots of meetings. That reminds me, I probably should do a live YouTube webinar on teaching people how to use meetings to get promoted. If people would like that, let me know, put it in the chat box, and I'll do a webinar on how to leverage meetings to actually enhance your career, because I'm always happy to do those kind of things. Abraham, if you don't like networking, you're going to have to focus on something different, like big data. But networking is critical to be a cloud architect. Yeah, and like Arun said, here's the thing. There's going to be a new service every day. Now, I really love to focus on fundamentals. The reason I focus on the fundamentals is it makes life easy. I've been working with the cloud for almost 30 years now. Most of you don't realize that the cloud is not new. The cloud is old tech. First cloud I worked on was Frame Relay. Next cloud was ATM. The next one was VPLS. There's just cloud after cloud after cloud. So guess what? You want to know the really exciting news? Nothing's changed in the last 30 years either, other than the speed of the systems. So I got to say this. And, nothing's changed. So when I first worked with virtualization back in 1998, it was VLANs. VLANs equaled server virtualization from VMware. Guess who was one of the funders of VMware? Cisco, people that invented VLANs. In 2003, we came up with the concept of a private VLAN, where people inside of the same broadcast domain couldn't actually talk to each other. So guess what? That became a container years later, where we basically virtualized an operating system. It's not new. It's the same tech. Now let's look at some other things. When we talk about Linux systems, Linux is the future, right? VSD Unix started in the 80s. Same operating system minus a few changes. All the Linux networking, the ping, the telnet, the traceroute, the SSH, 30, 40-year-old tech. It's not going anywhere. It's all the same stuff we've worked on forever. That's why we focus so much on the fundamentals. Every new invention, let's say Cloud Hub or Transit Gateway. Back in 1998, I was working on BGP route reflectors. And guess what? The whole point was to deal with IBGP being non-transitive routing. Now the cloud providers don't let you do transitive routing because they don't assume you know enough networking not to break your system. Guess what? You have to do cloud front. You basically use a transit gateway or a cloud hub. Basically, it's a route reflector that's 30-year-old technology. So understand what the job actually is. Ask architects that have been architects for 20, 30 years, or the people that hire them. Don't ask people that are not hired. Don't ask people that have not worked in the job. And that's really my best guidance for you. So, we did VLAN trunking, for example, 802.1q tagging 30 years ago. Guess what? We're now using it when you set up a direct connection to the cloud. Nothing's new. 30 years ago, we used NAT. Guess what? NAT's the same. 30 years ago, we started using firewalls. I remember when they first became stateful. Guess what? We're still using stateful firewalls. But then we used to use IDS, IPS systems 20 years ago. Now the next generation firewalls just integrated them in there. Everything new is an improvement of the same old technology. Get your fundamentals straight and you will always, always, always be up to date. You're never going to be lost. That's basically my best guidance for you. Any last questions for me? Coming from Zoom, if anybody would like a call back from Zoom. Okay, so I'm told there's another question here. I'm trying to find it. Abram, as you mentioned, cloud architects or design positions. How can you show these skills if you haven't worked on a project of that scale? Well, like I said, for the students in my program, they put down Go Cloud Architects and they talk about all the systems they've designed. My students design, typically speaking, 16 architectures throughout my program, as well as 6 projects and a capstone project. That are the likes of things that people that don't have, that would basically need 10 years of experience to design. My students build a portfolio of these things. They've got lots of architectures they could talk about. That's what I do. If you're on your own, find a means to really design big things. Go interview CEOs at organizations. Go find out what their business's goals are, their legal challenges, and go do this design. It's the only advice I can give you. My students hear from me. I basically use case study examples that I've worked with in my career, things that big organizations do. So if you're with us, it's covered. If you're not with us, and just go start interviewing big customers, figuring out what their technology is, find a way to basically design things. So make sure you polish up your soft skills, because it's going to be hard to do that. But it's a great question, Abraham. Kind of funny. 30 years ago, we had something called Ether Channel where we could bundle up 4 ports in a link. Now they call it link aggregation group. Again, it's all the same. So build those fundamentals. Become great at everything you do. That's the secret. Be fantastic at everything. So, any other questions for me? Abraham, I'll give you the best guidance I can. But remember, I'm not a data architect. I'm not a network architect. I'm a cloud architect. I'm a cloud security architect, an infrastructure architect. If I wanted to be a big data architect, I would still learn the systems that make the cloud possible, because most big data is going to be on the cloud. So I'd still get that architecture background to know all in all how stuff works together. Because even dealing with the databases going from point A to point B, there's going to be connectivity. And where's the connectivity coming from? The network. So I'd still learn the network. I wouldn't do any architecture work without at least understanding the pieces and parts and how they're connected. So next, I'd pick up some big, serious certifications from the big data providers, like an Oracle. Maybe get something in Apache Cassandra, for example, or some kind of NoSQL thing, and then still get something in the cloud. But for data, get things that demonstrate you have extreme knowledge of ETL tools. So you can take information from one database to another database. You've got to really, really get some depth in terms of when you use a data warehouse and why, because you're going to be architecting these things. You're going to then need some serious information on relational databases, why do they work, how do you scale them, and ways to make them work. Same thing with NoSQL databases. You're going to need extreme knowledge about how to make this stuff work. Then you're going to need extreme knowledge on the tools that are used to manipulate the data so you can design the systems. What applications can maybe parse through the data, do some machine learning. Then you're going to need to know a lot about the visualization tools that people can use to be able to glean these things, because that's part of your end-to-end solution design. So look, this big data architect role is big. And you're also going to have to get good at the streaming services like clickstream data, like, Internet of Things kind of data, and how organizations work that. With AWS, there's Kinesis, but you're going to have to be a master of these kind of things, because that's realistically speaking the world. So I hope I answered your question there, Abraham. Any other questions for me? I know we ran a little late today, but I was trying to give you guys as much as I possibly can. As long as there's questions, we always love to help. Abraham, I hope we answered your question, but we are pretty hyper-focused on cloud architects and network architects because that's our huge area of specialty, and security. Any last questions for me? I know on Zoom you can hear me immediately. I know also on YouTube it takes about 60 seconds. There's a delay. Oh, wonderful, Abraham. The whole goal, Abraham, our whole goal is to basically get you guys in the right direction to build any career you desire. So let us know. Houseaholics, is CCNA a good start? It really is, but it depends on what your goal is. So it's really dependent upon your absolute goals. If your goals to do pure networking, then it's not enough. You're going to need more. If your goal is to basically be generic and have a little knowledge of networking to improve your portfolio, then it's going to be and make you look much better. It's going to be fantastic. So, Houseaholics, if you tell me your end goal, I'm happy to try and give you more information, but I need to know your end goal. Raj's question, how do you leverage the transferable skills over your career? That is fantastic. Raj, you want to come off mute and we'll basically do it for you right now?
Sure.
Hi, Raj, tell me about what you've done in your career.
So I'm a chartered accountant, means have
Okay.
finance and account. Yeah, right. And in India, it's called chartered accountant, and it's CPA,
I
equivalent
know
in
it
the
is.
yeah. And
Okay.
over the years, I have been in sales, business development, and then currently I am a project manager, and I do a solution for finance and accounting. Basically in an outsourcing, environment.
Are you managing programs or are you designing things?
So I develop solutions for outsourcing finance and accounting operations.
Okay, so how many years have you been in tech?
Close to 15 to 18 years, I would say.
15 in tech, and how long were you an accountant?
Accountant, I would say all through my life, in the sense that has been my core specialty.
How many years?
18 years.
Okay, so
yeah.
Now we got something worth talking about. So, and I'm making it up on the fly. So it's not going to be as good as if I had a chance to think it out. I would tell the hiring manager, I'd say, look, I've been working in technology for 18 years, and I've worked in sales, business development, and program management. So I literally know how to start with the client, how to obtain their requirements, do the consultation to find out exactly what they need, and help design something for them, which is exactly what I would do as an architect. Now, I want to let you know my level of attention to detail. Would you believe it that I was actually an accountant for 18 years? And there's the joke about us accountants, how we're necessarily stingy and cheap and we've got to track everything. Well, because of that, I learned a level of attention to detail that it makes me be able to design things better than anyone. I can take a level of research and meticulousness that only accountants can do. So the reason you should hire me to be your cloud architect is I'm highly motivated, I'm highly energetic, I'm highly enthusiastic. I've been working in technology for 20 years or 15 years. And because of my background in accounting, I have a level and attention to detail like no one else. So I can help you design the best and most accurate solutions. That's what I would say. Now, I just made it up right now, so I didn't have a chance to really polish it.
Thank you so much, because on a day-to-day basis, I am talking to different stakeholders, just like as you explained when we were asking questions about big data and data science, and then you explained that in a big team of you would have security analyst, or you will be working with different kind of stakeholders, internal and external. My day-to-day job is just exactly the same. I work with recruitment, with technology team. For an example, I was setting up the accounting back office in India for a big oil company from Denver last 3 years ago, and they were setting up MPLS at that time. And since I was leading the the entire project, I was working with the technology team who would give, who would help me understand how we are doing the status reporting. Somebody asked a question, how do report the status of the program? What are the risks? How do we mitigate them? How do you bring up about the change management is I think is the biggest aspect of the role, which I can see that if tomorrow I become a cloud architect, I would be helping the client adapt the transition from data centers to cloud. So straight away, that kind of fill in the the way I'm looking at the role, that yes, I do have some of these transferable skills. And that 50% you said about communication, presentation, the all those skills, I think yeah, I'm looking forward to signing up for the course tomorrow, and yeah, really excited about it.
And we look forward to working with you, Ehan, but you got to remember one more thing that's your sweet spot. When you're a chartered accountant or a CPA, you're working with organizations that not only do you have to keep records of checks and balances, but you're looking at the tax laws, the tax codes, and you're trying to find a way for your organizations to pay less money. So, not only, as an accountant, because you're an expense, but you're also a financial resource. So that same thing really matters. Now, people that come from a finance background can do some ROI modeling. That's typically not an accounting skill set, but I bet you it wouldn't be too hard for you to learn how to do it.
Oh, that's something I do very often, because whenever,
great.
because whenever I'm presenting a a solution, the first question is how much will it take? Means from a budget perspective, then I know that the client will be working, especially the the CFO would, for the first thing he or she would ask me that, okay, we have a certain budget, what else you can provide us? So I have to rework the solution, keep the best interest of the client, and then shelf off certain aspect of the solution, but still maintain the the effectiveness of the entire solution, the design, what I'm doing. So yes, absolutely. So the return on investment discussion is something which leads to signing the contract.
Absolutely.
So,
There's no architectures done. There's no sales without our ROI model.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
And I think I do manage budgets in millions, because I'm currently managing China, Southeast Asia, and Europe. So those are my daily meetings, I would, or weekly. But thank
Perfect.
you so much
You're
for
welcome.
the insights you have given. I just found you yesterday. I was so confused until now, that how do I make this shift? And I think I went onto your website. You said something, moving away from the concept or the perception of inexperience. I think really that is helpful. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. See, you've already been a cloud architect for 15 years. You just didn't know it. So now it's just filling in the gap. That's the thing. There's no such thing as no experience. Now, that is a particularly very good related experience, because that's consulting, which is all an architect is a consultant with a technology basis. So perfect example. Look forward to working with you, by the way.
Thank
you. The next question was from Houseaholics. Is CCNA a good start? I will tell you, Houseaholics, that CCNA is a very good place to start. If you wanted to be a generic cloud architect, that is good enough. If you want to be a cloud network architect, well, I can tell you, myself and Imran, who's a close friend, between us, we have 3 CCIEs and 50 some years of networking experience, and we're making a cloud network architect program. To be a cloud network architect, you need, and we're training a lot of them right now, you need knowledge of the network that's somewhere between a CCNP level and a CCIE level. And you need good, strong knowledge of the cloud, like minimum certified solution architect professional, plus deep knowledge of the network and the data center. So CCNA is a good start, but it's nowhere close to enough to be a pure cloud network person. We're going to need, if that's all you want to focus on, which is a great place, you need between CCNP and CCIE level knowledge of the network. I hope I answered your question there, Houseaholics. I have 2 network architecture programs coming up soon, one specific for clouds and one people like me that just love being network architects. Virtual circuit, hi, you're 50. I am almost 52. You know nothing about architecture. That's okay, but you have a good background in cybersecurity. That is excellent. So you want to break into AWS architecture and you started learning. In your opinion, is it too late to start your career? Honestly, I get this all the time. One of my best students is 60 years old. And Derek is a wonderful guy. I work with young people, but here's what I'm going to say. It is so much easier for me to get a 40-year-old a job or a 50-year-old a job than it is a 22-year-old. And here's the reason. We architects are consultants. We're going to be dealing with billion-dollar budgets or $50 million budgets or $100 million budgets. And it is much easier to be 50 and interact with a 70-year-old CEO than it is to be 20. Now, I do work with 20-year-olds and I get them hired all the time. So I know how to do it, but being 50 is the perfect age to be an architect because you have that life experience that matters. You understand projects from end to end. You understand, what it means to say you're going to do something and actually deliver it. You know what it means to basically, speak. You've generally got more experience there. It's generally a little good if you have a couple of gray hairs when you're dealing with these jobs, these kind of architecture jobs. I hope I answered your question there. And security is great. What I would do with someone like you, just to let you know, Virtual Circuit, I've got a tremendous number of cloud security architects I'm working with. I think cloud security and cloud networking are probably the two best places moving forward. And here's the reason. Nobody knows the network other than us CCIEs for the most part. And because no one knows the network and nothing works without the network and everybody's scared of the network, so they just don't like it, nothing works without us. So we networking people are extremely high paid people because it's so hard to find us. Who do I see the next most critical thing is cloud security? And here's why. The cloud is much less secure than the data center. Much. The cloud is a super high value target. Look at it this way. In the cloud, if I hack into the cloud, I get everybody's stuff. If I hack into your data center, I just get yours. So if I'm a hacker, where am I spending my time? I'm going to hack AWS. I'm going to hack Azure. I don't want to care about your business. I'm going to hack the big guys. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's why I love these kind of things. So hack the big guys. So why else? Do you know that attacks on the cloud happen every single day? Did you know that 60% of all cloud attacks happen because people are misconfiguring S3 buckets because they don't even know what it is? So, you have that background in security, ideally like a CISSP, a Certified Solution Architect Professional. And if you've been in security forever, you don't even need the security certification. But get that cloud architecture, get the business acumen, get the end-to-end networking things, and you will have a career like nothing else. 50 is great, and security is a fantastic background. I've got a lot of people working on security, like Alonzo on this call. He's got a great security background and he's getting better by the day. So cloud security is a great place. We marry an architect position with a security position and you'll be in great shape. We've got a program for that as well. Any other questions for me? My God, I've been online for 3 hours. I don't usually run this long. It's just the questions are here. So if you got questions, we've got answers like the Radio Shack commercial used to be. Who else has a question?
Hey, Arun here. I'm just not pushing to market Mike's content, but I feel really worth it. I didn't have any experience at all. I'm speaking on behalf of Mike here. I'm very confident now about my cloud skills, and we are learning from the scratch end to end. So you don't have to worry about anything at all. That's what I've learned in these 8 weeks so far.
Thanks, Arun. You know what, it dawned on me. There may be some people on YouTube that can't ask the questions in as deep of a manner as they like. So if any people on YouTube want to just pop in and ask a question live on Zoom, I've actually included the Zoom link for you while we're still streaming. I'll keep it up for a few more minutes. Yeah, I love you guys being on YouTube. I actually prefer it because it's easier for me just to go to YouTube. But if you've got actually a question, you want to ask a question live, please feel free to pop right in and we'll do anything we can to answer your question via voice right there. And again, thank you so much, Arun.
And GCP exam, I didn't feel like I'm giving an exam. I was going through Mike's notes about what all the services are, and it was very easy. The exam was very easy because we designed throughout the classes, and I didn't feel like, oh, this problem, I didn't see it. I didn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of my students tend to attend a lot of these calls, and I'm always thrilled when they do because that way you can ask them about their experience. So thank you for sharing, Arun. I'm very grateful.
And also my communication is improving day by day. So that's how the class is working well.
That may be the most critical thing for the architect. Any other questions for me? If you're on YouTube and you enjoyed this content, if you can please leave a like. And heck, if you had fun, type Cloud Architect in the YouTube window. Okay, so I'm going to rest 30 seconds. Okay, Alonzo, wonderful. Cloud J, wonderful. In any case, I didn't see any people pop in from YouTube to Zoom. If anybody on Zoom has any questions, they can call our office at the following number. Pistol Grip Slobs, thank you so much. You've grown so much so fast. My associate Chris pasted a link to the program as long as a 20% coupon code. I will post a number to our organization just in case anybody has any questions. Okay, I don't know how we did it, but we live streamed for 3 hours and 50 minutes today. So thank you all. The people on Zoom, if any of you want to call back directly from me, just basically send me a private message and I'll give you a call back. Otherwise, it was really wonderful speaking to you all today, and I look forward to working with many of you soon. On Saturday, we're going to have some free networking training. Love you all to join. And we're going to have a lot more news to keep you guys informed of things that are going on in the industry. Lots of exciting things are going to be coming in the next week or two. Please stay tuned. Take care, everyone. Bye, Arun. Bye, Raj.